Good morning, everyone. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome here in the room. We will start our session today. I welcome you here live and online people to the, I can't say webinar, it's a mix of a hybrid conference and webinar on paving the way for innovative circular economy, products and services. CSERVEES and RECIPs will have the presentations today. We will have 3 panel discussions and we start with introduction from around the products. My name is Konstantin Hermann. I'm Sustainability Director Services on products in electronic sector at Sphera. I will be the moderator today, and for those who are online, you are muted, but you can raise questions in the chat. Everyone here in the room who wants to have questions, please wait until we have always the presentations done. We have reserved room for questions, which you certainly don't have to type into a chat line. You can raise your voice in the room here. I hand over with these introductory words to the first presentation. It's my first challenge because there are different ways of pronunciation. I try just one of those with the word Itziar from AIM+, who will give you more insights on the day and the presentations to come. Itziar, please.
Thank you, Konstantin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Itziar. I'm the head of the international projects in AIM+. We are a research center focused on plastics located in Valencia. I would like to welcome you to this event, paving the way for innovative circular economy products and services. And I would like also to give the welcome to those connected online. After these 4 years of project implementations, we will today present the main results and also our circular economy recommendations in the frame of the project that we have also prepared with another project from the Horizon 2020, which is RECIPs, and some of our partners from that consortium are today with us. And the obtained results that we present today, they represent the first step to efficiently implement circular economy business models in a sector which every day is increasing the waste between 3 and 5% every year. So there are still challenges ahead, and for that, all the actors of the value chain will keep connected. And this way, we will overcome the barriers we are affording. And with this, we will be able to implement new commercialization and use methods, as well as some reduced recircularity and recyclability processes, without just forgetting the part of the legal aspects that will be coming, eco-design and some others that we will be discussing today, and also taking into account the user awareness that we have also all the value chain actors to keep in mind. So with this, I will introduce you the video, and I would like to wish you a fruitful event today. Thank you.
Waste from electronic products, e-waste, is one of the fastest growing waste streams in the world, with almost 54 million tonnes generated in 2019, rising to 74 million tonnes by 2030, with less than 1/5 of this officially collected for recycling. These issues need addressing, not only to increase recycling, but to prevent e-waste in the first place.
The CSERVEES project has been created to tackle this challenge by developing electronic products that are designed to be produced, transported and consumed in new circular ways. The project focuses on 4 products: washing machines, televisions, printers and sensors that monitor network connections. It has developed new business models for each of them that reflect the circular economy concept.
The goal is to design products that last longer and contain a greater quantity of recycled materials, make it possible to lease the products rather than buy them, use 3D printed parts for repair or upgrade, improve the recyclability of the products, and take into account the social impacts of producing and consuming the products.
All this will be supported by an IT system that enables the tracking of products over their lifetime and gives easy access to information about them, such as the materials it contains. These innovations and principles have been applied to the products and are being rigorously assessed to establish their applicability and impact.
The outcome of CSERVEES will be 4 practical circular business models that have been implemented and tested, address all aspects of the life cycle of the products, and, crucially, will be able to be used by other manufacturers and for other products across the world. Join with us in achieving our goal. Visit CSERVEESproject.eu to find out more.
So please take away again the popcorn after the cinema introduction, and our next speaker is talking live and bringing more insights into the CSERVEES project. It's Mohammed Osmani from Loughborough University. Please be so kind.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. Good morning, everyone. So after the video just gives you a highlight about the project and the 4 selected products for circularity, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the development of the circular economy business model, part of this project. So we started all this project by addressing a challenge. Why circular economy business models? So it all started by looking at a concept, although the concept of circular economy and circular economy principles are acknowledged and accepted in the industry, it has been very, very difficult to implement at the industry level. And generally speaking, the up-to-date now, whatever is happening now, the business model, the circular economy business model in the electrical and electronic equipment sector has been piecemeal, in the sense that it wasn't really adopted holistically by the sector, although there were so many drivers, legislative drivers, business drivers, economic drivers, social drivers, and this is as well has been really impeded as well and hampered by different issues such as no integrated circular economy approach at the sector level. There was no framework that has been accepted, agreed by the industry for circular economy business at the sector level. And most importantly, stakeholders uncertainty, and at the same time being uncertain about the benefits of adopting, developing and implementing circular economy business models. Hence, the CSERVEE has looked at this to address the 2 aspects of challenges at the sector level and organizational level by doing 2 concurrent tasks. The first task is to develop a circular economy business model at the sector level, that it could be applied to any EE products, and then applying this framework, circular economy business framework, to 4 products with washing machines, printers, ILM, which is a telecom product, and TV sets and displays. So, just to give you very briefly the stages to develop the circular economy business models. So all the yellow boxes there at the sector level, and the green boxes, they are at the product level. So we started by looking at, we did a survey, looking at, to capture stakeholders' views on various aspects of circular economy business model, awareness, barriers, and then enablers. And that was across 13 countries across Europe. And we had 1,300 responses. From that, we looked at trying to capture the stakeholders' business and operational implementation requirements. What do they need to adopt and implement circular economy business models? Then after that, we looked at all existing circular economy business models, the widely accepted in the sector, and then how the relevance to the EE sector. Then we looked at, in general, at EU and national level among the EU member states, at different policies, instruments relevant to the EE sector. And then finally, we looked at identifying the circularity indicators. If you can't measure something, you can't improve it. So you have to find a measure how to improve through the circularity indicators. So these 5 blocks of work has led to the development of what we are calling a reference circular business model for the sector. And then after that as well, it was developed a sort of a guidance document, which is step-by-step how to implement the sector level circular economy business model to 4 products. And that's what we have applied, this business model for 4 products: washing machine, printers, ALM, and TV sets and displays. And then after that, we produced a set of what we call circular economy actions, circular economy strategies. But we looked at it short-term, medium-term, long-term. Short-term within the duration of the project, and then medium-term, long-term, where the companies could consider this part of their strategic plans, exploitation in the future. And then for the project, we just implemented the short-term. So just to give you an idea, this is the initial, because there's a lot of work, just to summarize it into these flow charts here. The whole rationale and approach behind development was based on the triple approach of value. So proposition, value capture, and value creation and delivery. And then the innovation is this, to come up with an integrated approach, starting with the strategy. As a business strategy, let's look at the current objectives, current business model. How can we shift into circular objectives? How can we shift the existing business model to a circular economy business model, which will lead to the canvas? I've got 9 categories of the canvas. We developed 36 subcategories and more than 50 for each of the products later on, 50 circular economy actions. The layer 3 is looking at what are the challenges and opportunities for the canvas. And then we looked at the mapping of all the EU policy as a layer 4, and then finally will be about the security indicators. So, and then if you look at the right-hand side, we have got this step-by-step how this circular economy business model at the sector level could be applied at the product level. I think because we don't have a lot of time, we have just 10 minutes, we have published a paper there for you if you want to know a little bit more about the details how we develop the circular economy business model at the sector level. Then we applied it now to 4 products. I'm just giving an example here of, we have exactly the same methodology to develop for the 4, but of course the specificities, the characteristics of each product are different. So these are all, we started by having the layer 0, which is the products that you want to demonstrate, that you want to apply the circular economy business to, and then we apply all the layers from strategy, the canvas, to the policy, to the challenges and opportunities, and then finally to the security indicators. And if you look at the right-hand side, so the first column is the 9 category for conventional canvas. Then we created these 36 associated subcomponents. For every subcomponent, you have got the circular economy actions that it will be demonstrated or has got the potential for demonstration or adoption by the company. Out of this, you can see in the category 7, which is the value creation, which is really the center of the compass there in the middle, and we had the PSS. We applied the PSS for one of the products. We're going to talk about it in a minute. And then that's the common denominator between the two projects, 3CPCs and CSERVEES. And then we are going to go now, what do we mean by PSS? I'm sure that a lot of people will know what it is, and then it's just looking at representing a shift from a current business model that focus on traditional business offerings, i.e. just products, moving to a system where you can combine a product and the service together, and it will offer more capable of offering specific customers' demand and generating value for the company. Hence, the idea is to decouple business success and growth from just pure product sale. And you can see it here in this figure, that we have got the traditional way, two parallel streams, products, just manufacturing washing machine and selling it. The other one with another service, could be an extended warranty, could be an insurance for cars or whatever, and then bringing them together. So we have tangible products on base, and then the other one has, it's not manufactured, it's a service, which could be based on skills, on knowledge, on effort, but it's not manufactured. So putting them together as a circular economy business model linked to PSS. But there are three types of PSS. So moving from ownership to access. So the first one is product orientated. So again, it's very related to the product, but it's maybe extending the life through extended warranties. Then we go to the use-orientated, which is ownership. It's maintained by the company, but it's looking at leasing, renting, and sharing, for example. And the final one is result-orientated, and that's looking more of a service provision agreement through a self-service capabilities, which combines both the product and the service at the same time. But every circular economy business model has got benefits and barriers. But our work has indicated the key barriers, the key benefits are the product and service customization, avoiding all the repair and maintenance, and that's not part of your headache anymore, and the after-sale care, and the fashion trend as well. So you don't have to buy new products because there is a new trendy product in place, so it's the problem of the company who will come up with this. So that's for customers. For companies, with marketing opportunities, open to new customers, expanding the customer base, looking at less volatility in cash flows of the company, locking in customers, blocking out competitions, quite a lot of things. But there are some barriers. From a customer's perspective, preference of ownership. They all got to own things, they're theirs, and then they have got some kind of a relationship with their products. Concerns about cleanness and damage in some cases. Affordability could be perceived, maybe because it's a PSS, maybe it's going to cost me more, and so forth. I'm familiar with the PSS concept, one of them is the issue for customers. When we talk customers, we are talking about B2B and B2C customers. And then initial investment for the companies could be a barrier, capital cost and so forth, and all the investment, changing rates of return investment, changing review patterns, market demand and supply across the supply chain. So this, the PSS, has been demonstrated in one of the 4 products, which is the ALM product. Every product of the 4 been through 3 stages, looking at demonstration of 3 stages: design phase, the use phase, and the end of life. For the PSS, for the ALM, it has been demonstrated for the use phase, where AGVA has looked at an analysis and implementation of different PSSs, and then later on we have got a panel discussion where Klaus from AGVA will take you through what they have done in terms of implementation of the PSS for the ALM products. And on that note, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Constantine.
Thank you, Mohammed. The next 15 minutes, we will have a mix of an online presentation and two speakers in the room. It's about how ICT tools can help implementing circular economy business models. And I asked Teresa Oberhauser from Circularize to speak up from the online audience. I hope that works technically. And afterwards, we have Juan Carlos Liebana from Soltel and Sarah Fosser from RINA. Please, Teresa, I hope you can hear me and I hope it works. So we have still a couple of audio. Shall we change succession or? Yeah, please. Then Juan Carlo, please, go ahead.
Okay, so good morning. I'm Juan Carlos. Yes, I'm going to skip these first slides because this is the Teresa part. So now when she comes back to us, she can explain everything. Okay, so I'm not going to make apologies for that. The brief introduction, I'm going to let Teresa do that part. So I'm going to be talking right now about the information exchange platform. That it's one of the 3 ICT tools that we have been developing during the CSERVEES project. First of all, I want to talk about this mantra that we have been repeating last month internally into the project, and it's very related with this concept about the technology and people. We do really believe that big part of the projects related with the circular economy processes are very related with the human factor. So behind all this technology that we will be knowing with Teresa, with Circularize, and with Sarah in the logistic platform, we also believe that the most important part, or one of them, is the people, of course, and the users and the companies. So our focus here with the information exchange platform is just let the people and companies discover each other, connect each other, and of course, exchange all the information they can in a secure environment, in a very easy way and fastest as possible. So that's exactly what the information exchange platform is. It's just an ICT tool aimed to the actors of the electronic equipment products life cycle to share all this information, but most important part, to discover who is involved on these processes, because we do really believe that it's very important to the users and the companies to know which companies are involved on all these circular economy processes and how everything is working, to connect them, and of course to exchange all these manuals, documents, and all the information they will need to start the processes. So we have these 4 big parts inside our website that covers most part of the functionalities I'm talking about. There are the manufacturers list or the partners list where you can check who is involved. Also, you can share all your documents like PDF, docs, whatever, manuals, guides, or any other information you need to share with the partners. It's going to be always easier if you can do it through one platform and not by email, for instance, one by one. So you can do it in a very fast way. You also can create and share quick guides inside the platform, so you can specify all the processes during the repairing process or the reinforcement processes, recycling, step by step. So it's everything very, very clear during the processes. And finally we have a forum section where new conversations can start, discussions, comments, suggestions about any kind of question about the relationship between the partners. So there are 4 very easy functionalities. This platform is not about fancy algorithms or strange things. It's just to discover who is involved in these processes, contact them, and start to share information and start new dialogue communication channels. So of course there are many other functionalities into the platform. So anybody has any question after during the lunchtime, I think we will have time, so you can contact me and we can show you the platform if you want, and make me any questions, of course. So finally, on my side, there's a very interesting resume of the platform. This is that Lexmark during the demonstration phase on Lexmark and Arcelic. In both cases, it has been a considerable advantage to be able to store the documents in a common and secure repository. And we are very happy with the results because it's exactly what we were supposed to do. We need a place where to store all the documents, that it's a place secure, easy, and fast. So it's not like a big deal, but it's a lot, taking care that it's a very important issue to the users to have where to discover who is involved. Again, I repeat this mantra again, who is involved on these processes, contact them, and exchange all the information in the easiest and fastest way possible. Okay, so that's all on my side. I know if Sarah is going to, okay, great. So thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone. Okay, one of the free ICT tools is about logistics. We consider an efficient management of the reverse logistics a key point to make the circular value chain more sustainable and attractive for both parts, for the industrial companies, of course, but also for the end users. A good planning of the journeys make possible a reduction of the CO2 emissions, but also a reduction of other pollutant emission, and of course a reduction in the transport cost. That makes a contribution to a finally reduction of the cost of a product, which increase the attractiveness of the reuse and second-hand materials, which finally increase the environmental behavior of the users, but also industrial companies. In the scope of CSERVEES project, we developed a logistic platform which allow to create new scenarios for the logistics. With this platform, it is possible to include new materials or end-of-life products as a node of a new supply chain. And of course, it is possible to compare these new scenarios with the traditional ones. The tool is road-based, and it is possible to optimize the multi-stop pathway to connect all the stakeholders in order to collect all the end-of-life products or recovered materials. The logistic platform has a main core, which is the best routing algorithm. This algorithm works on the base of input data available for the CSERVEES project, which are the location of the warehouses where the product can be collected, the information about goods like volume and weights, but also some constraints to put all together this product, and it is also possible to select a type of truck. That means dimension, but also Euro class, in order to evaluate at the end of a process the CO2 emissions, but also the main pollutant emission per each selected route. The algorithm works to optimize the route by identify a best sequence of nodes of a supply chain in order to collect all the products, but with the aim of reducing the driving distance, and identify an appropriate number of trucks. That means if it is possible, the tool can identify one multi-stop pathway, but in case the locations are too scattered in the area, it is possible to divide the supply chain in more sections and assign one truck per each section. At the end, the tool for a selection of routes evaluate and propose the environmental impact. The tool is accessible to this link. It is necessary a registration, and all the data, personal data, are managed according to the GDPR. Finally, some results within the CSERVEES project demo. We applied this tool in 3 different demos. One in the Lexmark demo about printers, and on the Arcelic demonstration about TV and washing machines. The results are different in terms of solutions, because in the Lexmark case, due to the location of the warehouses, the best solution is to create a multi-stop pathway. Instead, for the Arcelic demo, also in this case, due to the location of the warehouses, the best solution is to divide the supply chain in more sections and to assign a truck to each section. But in both cases, the results are good because the environmental saving for the best solution compared with a traditional one, which not include the multi-stop pathway, is about 30–40%. Okay, this is an example. Okay, this is all. Thank you for your attention. Also, in this case, you can find some information on the CSERVEES website, of course, like a webinar to introduce the ICT tools, and a video to explain you how to use the logistic platform. But in case you are interested, I'm of course available to present the logistic platform during the lunchtime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We have to make a little bit of correction of the original agenda. It's technically not possible to go beyond the chat from online. That means, sorry, Teresa, I would love to have heard that from you originally, but we have to skip this. So again, a reminder for those who are online, please ask your questions in the chat. With that, we move to the next one, and that's the first panel discussion of today. I will introduce the panel member persons when we come to that. You can come up here already and take a seat, But in the beginning of that panel, to introduce that a little bit more in detail, Michele Liberati from P&O will give us an introduction. And yeah, here you come. And exactly, take a second until the panelists will have a seat, and then please go ahead, Michele.
Thank you very much, Konstantin, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for the ones who are online for being here. So I'm going to briefly present the results of the demo phase of the CSERVEES project. I believe that this project has got huge opportunities in terms of results in economic, environmental, and social impact. And actually, the demo phase were carried out along the 4 products that are here represented with the 3 industrial partners. So printers, ALM, TV set, and washing machines. The project started with the framework development that was presented before by Professor Osmani, where the current business model were assessed. The framework was developed along the 5 layers that were shown before, and the circular economy action were derived. During the demo phase, the short-term actions were implemented, and we are going to see the results of this part today. And right now we are in the validation phase, in which we are reviewing the business model canvas and building the path for the future implementations. So basically that's the work that these people have done during this year together with the consortium partners. So these are the main results for printers for Lexmark demo, all along the 3 phases, from design and production to distribution and use to end of life. So the 3D printing was considered a viable option for some non-functional part of the product, and can be used for this part as tools for producing spare parts. Eco-design principle for refurbish, reuse, and recycle were explored, and several solutions were considered, especially related to the architecture of the product, for example, to cartridge, and to easy instructions and solutions that could ease the refurbishment phase, so the end-of-life phase of product management. During the distribution phase, analyses were carried out on product service systems, so they were explored the potentialities of leasing the product, which is actually a service that Lexmark already has, and that one of the company objective is to increase this part as a service. And then the maintenances, and then the take-back scheme. Interesting results were also from the customers' surveys and interview that were done, especially related to some awareness on cosmetic defects that in the end appeared to be well accepted by the customers. And also about the willingness to know more about the environmental impact of refurbished products. So these are cool, interesting knowledge inside that are used and are going to be used by the company, basically to change the mindset. Actually, business model innovation is first change the mindset, especially within established company. So I really appreciate the work that these people are doing for shifting somehow the route of established company toward circular economy business models. The demo phase for Lexmark focused a lot on end of life in order to strengthen and improve the end of life logistic, using the example of RINA simulation of supply chain, transportation and deliveries of end of life product. Here the goal is to increase the volume cost, logistic cost was analyzed to be a significant cost drivers for these activities, and the volume of this product can significantly have an impact on this percentage. And as well as finding solutions to lowering costs, such as partnerships, such as joint initiative for the logistic networks. Then the refurbishment processes were analyzed in terms of operation management, and also here several solutions were defined in order to gain efficiency during the refurbishment activities. That's also an activity much related to volumes. Finally, the business cases were done on recycling and recovery and recycling components. This business case showed that for some part, I think for 4 parts, there were economics, interesting economics. So for this part, recover components can be a viable way, and also about the usage of recycled ABS plastic derived from cartridges. These are the results from ADVA, from Access Link Monitoring Products. So there was an activities on improving packaging by reducing or eliminating plastics. Also here, eco-design principle explored that actually led to the extension of lifetime of the product to up than 30 years, and other principle that will guide the future generation of ALM product. Also, the product service system was explored in terms of analysis with basically 3 scenarios that compare sales of product and maintenance without take-back, sales of product and maintenance with take-back scheme, and leasing product maintenance and take-back. Here the economics show interesting results. So there are some viable economics that can support this further extension of PSS service business model. I think the most interesting output of the demo was the new lifetime analysis KPI. So the team, the ADVA team with Klaus worked on developing a new KPI for assessing, for basically supporting the decision on how to refurbish, repair a product, or substitute a product. That index is called UPR10 and is the ratio between 10 years usage, global warming potential, and the production global warming potential. It's under discussion, its implementation, its usage in ITU-T standards. Finally, for end of life, the full material declaration was considered an interesting approach for other ICT tools that could be developed in the future, such as digital twins. Finally, for washing machine and TV, Arcelic demonstration, the eco-design principle exploration led to several interesting results in terms of increase the recycled contents, plastic recycled contents in the products, especially for TV, to novel and patented solution formulas for plastics that can increase the productivity, so the efficiency of production of some plastic components, and decrease the usage of plastic or raw materials. Also here, the product service system was tested in different scenarios, and the economics here, even though of course we don't have access to this data that are considered sensible by all the companies, we only have the final result. The economics here seems to be positive. The NPV of the eco-leasing, maintenance, and take-back system seems to be positive, but lower than the actual business model. So this part is going to be considered in some customer segments for some customer application in the future, and explore more in detail what could be the potential commercial strategy in order possibly to increase revenues or to reduce costs. Customer feedbacks were done also by internal survey, by internal Arcelic employee surveys that led to actually a 39% of declaration of willingness to rent a product instead of buying a new one, and 78% of buying a refurbished product instead of a new one, with a cost benefit, of course. So that's the main output from the customer perspective. Also, the end-of-life phase was explored together with the Hemhaus consortium partner in order to expand the refurbishment activities in Europe. These activities today are run by Arcelic company in Turkey, and they are going to expand this activity in Europe. And of course, these activities were supported by the ICT platform and tools developed that you saw before. And finally, an analysis of recycling and recovery was done, and actually the conclusion was that it could be interesting exploring specialized operation in components collection, considering the difficulties of doing this operation at the recycling centers. So actually, these are the basic results. Then we ask our partners, what are your outcome expectations in the future? So that's a qualitative assessment of what could be the result in the long term, 3-5 years time frame, according basically to 6 objectives, to 6 KPI, 2 of each one related to the 3 life cycle phase. Well, here actually the results show that there is potential in terms of environmental results, and also a significant potential in terms of social results, such as possibility of new employment. There are still concerns about the economics. So, of course, the economic part still remain to be analyzed and further developed in order to really assess the economic potential of circular economy business model, and hopefully in the future this way of doing business will overcome the traditional one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michele. You can take a seat in the panel. I hand over the microphone to you, and we'll take this one. I hope it works. And as we learned, every product has its own specifics, and therefore we also have here specific members from the project and on the panel. Let me start on the left-hand side, ladies first. Certainly, this is Özlem Ündür. I hope I pronounced it as well, as good as I can, from Arcelic, representing the washing machine and the TV sets. Then we have Anna Isabel from Geica. Anna Isabel, yes, for sure. Sorry for that. Then we have Klaus Grobe from ADVA for the ALM, and that is the ever-running joke. Yes, yes, we learned about that. We will hear more from that. Then I cordially welcome Hans-Christian Eberl from the European Commission, RTD. I'm very happy that you also joined in that panel, and I'm very curious on the discussions to come. And finally, since Michele we know already, so finally we have Patrick Carminati from Lexmark. Carminati, sorry. Yes, please. So I will moderate a little bit, but feel always free to jump also to the other one and start your conversations. It doesn't have to go all with me. But for sure, one of the first questions is certainly always in a project, the challenges. We have seen the solutions already. We will talk more about that. Might go to everyone, but maybe we start with a more neutral person, not representing one of the products directly. Anna?
Yes, sure. Okay.
You switch it up.
I think it's on? Yeah, now yes. Thank you, Konstantin. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, about the challenges. Yeah, there were plenty. I mean, maybe the first challenge that we had to address when starting the demonstration work was that we had, after the business model validation, we had such a long list of circular economy actions because, we wanted to address the whole life cycle of the product. So from design phase, production, use, end of life. So we came up with a really long list of CE actions to be implemented. So I think the first challenge for us was to actually, see how we tackle all of them, how to prioritize them, and really know which ones were the most relevant, because all of them were relevant, because all of them were chosen when they were in the validation, but some of them were more relevant or more important for the companies than others. So that was the first challenge, I would say. And then, of course, afterwards, during the demonstration, we had also technical challenges related to, acquiring materials, for example, of enough quality or spare parts with enough quality to actually do the refurbishment or repair procedures. We also had challenges related to technological, the technologies we try to use. For example, we didn't get so good results with 3D printing. We actually wanted to use the 3D printing technology to prepare or obtain spare parts to facilitate the refurbishment or the reuse phase. And we didn't get such good results there. I think there may be several reasons. But I think mostly those, and maybe our colleagues can also point at some more. I don't know.
Sure, if everyone jumps in. Super happy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would have a small addition, more specific one. I would call it functional obsolescence, in particular related to energy efficiency or improvements in energy efficiency over time. For our equipment, ICT infrastructure, that is absolutely relevant because it blocks arbitrary lifetime extension. So that has obviously an impact. Doesn't hold for all EEE, but for some. And consequently, the matter is to find out optimum lifetime. We had that keyword already.
So is it also about having your company name on a product? And it doesn't work anymore, and it can happen always in the first life cycle as well as in the 100th life cycle, but still your name is printed on? Is that what you mean with the functional obsolescence as one of the criteria?
Not really, or I didn't understand the question. It's either functional obsolescence or functions of components, electrical components, getting obsolete. In other words, if I take back the equipment after 10 years or so, or maybe 15, the components are not of any use anymore because they are completely outdated in an extremely fast-paced market. And one example is, as said, energy efficiency.
Okay, yeah, okay, sure. That's totally different than I had in mind. So if it doesn't work anymore when it comes back, it might be pretty hard in an electric board to exchange single components and to reuse the other parts. I think it's
not only. If I consider a 15 years old piece of equipment taken back, and it contains some specific ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits. That's what they do. these ASICs are old and obsolete. We can't use them anymore. The only way is recycling.
Did the others with their products face similar?
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, as we were talking about challenge, as it relates to the Lexmark demo, one of the challenge has been at the beginning to embark our marketing and sales team in the adventure to convince them. I like to mention that we focus a lot on a remanufacturing product, and it revealed to be a success at the end because it drove a lot of traction. But it's been a challenge at the beginning. And hopefully we've been able to interact with customer and discover that customer acceptance has changed and has maybe changed faster than we industrial are changing some of our mindset. So this has been a significant challenge. And more specifically and tactically, but I guess we'll discuss about it a bit later on, cost has been and remain a challenge when we remanufacture products. So as we want to talk about challenges, this has been a significant challenge. And the last one, just for the project, because we work as a team with all the consortium, a major challenge has been to work with the COVID background. And we've been successful to overcome it by significant communication and the few relationship that we set up at the very beginning of the product. So thanks to everyone for that.
Maybe I can also jump in. So I think Michele was mentioning about this state of mind. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge, both in terms of the business and also in terms of the customer perception as well. Because, for instance, when we ask the customers whether they would be willing to rent a product or buy a refurbished one, in terms of the washing machines, they were reluctant because they were afraid of the hygiene issues. I mean, even if we told them that we're going to change certain components which would provide that hygiene back to them, they were like, no, I'd rather buy a new one. And or they were especially more sensitive to the cost. So then it goes back to the business, whether you're going to make any money out of it or not, because that's also a really important concern. Even the economic situation that we're facing in the world right now, with all the inflation and the war going on, it even impacts companies' decisions to work for a new business model or not. So even that affects. And also, as an enabler in our industry, for example, as Patrick was mentioning, it's really hard to convince the sales team that a refurbished product, a second-hand product, can also create revenues for a company, or that we have to change the way we look at the business models. But then, a lot of our retail channels, they started separating like maybe 20% of their store to refurbished products in the Nordic. We see this coming in the Nordics. So if it's coming in the Nordic countries right now, it's obvious that it's going to like expand into the Europe, and afterwards we're always considering Europe, but this WEEE is a big problem in underdeveloped countries as well. So there's a lot of hurdle in that regard as well, I think. And also in terms of the lack of infrastructure, we have seen the recycling facilities, and it's not really easy to take back a product once it becomes waste. And we have also seen that the refurbishment companies, they're not really equipped technically with the know-how to recover components from products before it becomes waste. So that's the kind of infrastructure investment that needs to be in place and to be backed by green financing options and etc. So I would say those are the main challenges of the industry.
So what I hear and what I learn is there's a technical level. Yeah, it might be around the product, might it be around the function, might it be around the life cycle stages, the value chain, recyclers, etc. Then there is a, let's say, a conditional mindset, which is sales, marketing, openness, yeah, openness to business models, yeah, maybe also the economic conditions, yeah, is another level. And what I hear as well is certainly then the expectation outside, which is certainly again interlinked with the conditions, economic conditions. If clients don't, or customers don't want to buy, it's certainly immediately an economic impact. So what would you say is, how did you start, or how did you start? What was the first challenge? Was it more the technical approach, or was it more the in-house mindset preparation, let's say? Or was it more that it's time because people expect things to come? Can you elaborate there? Because in my opinion, that might be also important for the Commission, because that could be an enabling part at some time to make initial, open doors, to maybe today more restricted things. So can you elaborate a little bit more on whether it was technical, whether it was the condition the biggest challenge, or whether it was the outside world, the outside, is there something to report from your experience?
From our experience, the biggest challenge has been cost related. Remanufacturing of a product, technically, it's fairly easy. On the other hand, you have all the reverse logistic, the material, the labor, which drives significant costs compared to a brand new product. And this plays into perspective of customers' expectation. There is a paradigm that if it's a second-hand product, it should cost twice less than a brand new product, which is about impossible to achieve if you want to have the same warranty than a brand new product. So here there is some work to do, and we focus a lot on how to reduce those costs. And I just want to mention as well, reacting to what was said before, used products are still considered as waste. So guess what? They are handled as waste by all the reverse logistic. Why they should not be handled as waste? They should be handled as product which potentially can have a second or a third life. And here we still have a lot to do.
Do you mean the waste by perception or by legislation? Can be both, or?
It's mainly by perception, I think.
Perception. Mm-hmm.
And then as it relates to cost, because it has a cost if you want to nicely handle a product or badly handle it,
I agree with Patrick in that I think the less complex part was technology. I mean, we know pretty well as how to eco-design a piece of equipment, and we are doing so. So that wasn't it. I mean, we have, again, to discriminate between products that can be given very long lifetime and those who should be taken out of service for very good reasons. But we kind of know how to do it, and that's fine. I think the bigger problem for us also was in the range of, in the area of changing the business model itself. We have as a strategic goal the increase of services, true, but how to really exactly implement is partially open. And consequently we investigated in all sort of PSS applicable to our products and gathered some findings. Not all of them are equally useful, but some are. And very likely we will proceed with these. But it was that area that deserved more attention.
I would also say that funding by the EU for such projects enables experts like us to really push the company top management into thinking otherwise, because such funding opens the way for the companies to really work on something else, another business model that can be made possible. I mean, for us, for the first time, for the sake of this project, we tried looking at the feasibility of this model. We have done it for, let's say, pay-as-you-wash services before, but we've never done it for rent model or a refurbishment model. And the result is, even with the most pessimistic scenario, we did receive a positive net present value. So, I mean, of course, it's dependent on a lot of conditions economically, but I would say that it was this opportunity to work for something else that motivated us rather than a challenge, because the challenges are always going to be there, but such fundings really open the way for companies to think otherwise.
So it's kind of a hand and egg question, huh, what I hear. Yeah, so you have ideas, but there is not open mind and open doors, yeah, to test it and to check it. And on the other hand, you only can come to open ideas if you have tested and checked it. Yeah? What would you say? Is it possible to implement circular products as an evolving activity, or do you really have to think out of the box new things, like cut and start all over new?
Evolving. Very clearly. In particular, if in the end we want to see more PSS, maybe even more leasing business, that to me must be done gradually. Because if we would try to start it on day X, Y, Z with very high volume, it potentially kills us. So that needs to be gradually, and that also means that the eco-design things, etc., can be done gradually over time. If there's a specific need for any eco-design aspects, that's being followed anyway.
Yeah, I agree with Klaus. I think it's mainly evolving. And I believe there are also some organizational enablers for this evolution, meaning business model innovation happens, for example, when there are independent teams within the organization that carry on these activities, these tests. So actually also the organizational part here, we got a representative from people who work especially on circular economy, but that doesn't happen so often in companies. So having specific team that work like independent startup within company for doing this process.
Maybe Hans Christian, you have some experience because you have broad overview of other projects and certainly also of statements and situations everywhere in European Commission's RTD world. Can you support that trend, that evolving is over thinking new out of the box?
Yes and no, but I have a few more comments I wanted to intervene anyway.
Go ahead, please.
Because I was wondering why you invited me. I mean, 5 experts and the bureaucrat on the stage, and I thought about it. What would you expect of me? And one thing is probably what does the Commission think about what we are doing, and the other thing is how can you support us in what we are doing? And thinking about what you're doing, absolutely the right thing. I mean, product service systems, yes. Focusing on the value, absolutely. Not starting with recycling, yes. Finally, we are getting there. That we go to the design phase. But I still see a few blind spots, and one, for example, is the retailers. I saw the retailers on one slide at the end of a chain, and nothing's going on there. And one problem that I see with product service systems is, I mean, what do we have to offer to retailers? I mean, a manufacturer can still make a win with this transition, because okay, they're selling knowledge, then they are selling service, then maybe they sell even more than before. But how does the retailer make a win out of this? And I mean, there are some models where this works. I mean, how do you introduce modular cell phones, for example? The one who can influence that is the retailer. How do you introduce sustainable apparel? That's only the retailer who can do this. That's not the manufacturer. And then when we talk about refurbishment, another important story. apparently, I understand that some components don't age well. So what do you do with that? I don't have a solution for that. Yes, you go to material recycling, which is probably not feasible. But I mean, there are examples where this works. I mean, it would be great to have someone here complementing this with the experience from the medical equipment refurbishment industry, which is a real industry, a big industry. And there you have huge international value chains. You have, of course, then you have to question the sustainability of the transport ways. But there you have business models that maybe this group could learn from. So I think the picture is still incomplete. And whether we need gradual incremental change or something disruptive and brilliant new ideas, I think we need both. I think it's not one or the other. But the question is, what could we do through funding? And I don't know whether I understood you correctly, but I think this is not for real research and innovation funding. This is not something that we can promote anymore through traditional R&I calls now under Horizon Europe or whatever. I think this is the next stage. Here, these are things where we need to discuss about financing. So we agree there.
Yeah, I also tried to say that green financing options should be considered. I mean, I was referring to from our own experiment. We did issue a green bond in our company last year for a transaction value of 350 million euros, which saw a demand from the market around 1.6 billion euros. So we were able to decrease the interest rate in our borrowing. And we were able to fund our energy efficient products for the production of the energy efficient products, which is related to our science-based targets. So what I'm trying to come to is, if such innovative systems were also implemented to increase the reverse logistics, the recycling, the refurbishment systems, if such incentives could be provided by the financing sector and also by legislative to include some certain tax incentives or other incentives that would promote companies to really look for options to increase recycling. For instance, we have 2 WEEE recycling facilities in Turkey, which is making loss. And we are declaring that it is making loss because of the reverse logistics. But we're not really funded by the Turkish government in any way that would provide us, that would motivate us to even collect more products from the market. So the same goes for the EU as well. We don't have this reverse logistics system by our company. We work with other providers. If the system were incentivized somehow, it would really motivate others to really play this game too. And in terms of the retailers, like the retailers in our sector right now, they are really focused on this refurbished product sales because they see a value there. And that value is taken from the manufacturer because they become the ones that make money out of this business. And the manufacturer becomes that spare part provider somehow. And maybe it's that, maybe due to this reason, the manufacturer can focus more on the rent side and how they would create recurring revenues from the rent products rather than the refurbished products, because in the refurbished products, their revenue generation turns more into spare part provider.
So yeah, go ahead.
If I may add also to the first point, that it's a key point, the role of retailer as well in the reverse logistic value chain. So I think it should be in the roadmap for the future for this project. And I think the experience of our SELEC in UK is a good example, for example. So if you want to add more about that.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can talk more about it. Like one of our biggest retail channel has their own warehouse where defect products collected from the markets, they are stored in that warehouse to be sent to our customers' recycler, the recycler that they work with. So these recycling companies, they take our products, refurbish the ones they can, and they have this website where they sell our products saying, give this Beko a second life. And that's the business model that they have. And it somehow works so that they do it, right? So that's the opportunity the manufacturers are missing when they don't have their own infrastructure in place. Or they can cooperate with the retailers, because the retailers also have like targets to really take back the products from the market as well, such as the manufacturers do, or the retailers right now, because they're focusing more on the refurbished side, they would really need that technique to find those refurbishment companies as well. So I think that's a very valid point.
Can partially second that. In our analyses, we call the retailers the value-added resellers. So that's, we digged into this, and I fully agree. They are part of the game and have to be part of the game. Either they are engaged in the reverse logistics, maybe even part of the maintenance. But that's true already today, at least in our case, which is B2B.
Do they behave, and do they have to be changed in mindset for new things, or are they more open than we learned in the beginning of the comments?
Can't necessarily speak for the rest of the world, but in our case they are open. They do parts of the required services and actions already. Maintenance, for example.
So in other words, where business is for them, they do it. It doesn't matter whether it's closing the loop or whether it's new products. Is that correctly positioned?
Correct, and that's also one of the reasons why I said gradually or transitioning, because it's there already, and in our case would have to be improved or increased.
Well, we have a little bit more time, and I would use that. I still have questions in my mind, and we could go ahead, but I have a look here into the room, also into the chat room, where I haven't seen yet any written questions, but if someone here from the auditorium has, please chime in. Yes, here in the first row.
So my name is David Fitzsimons. I'm the Director of the European Remanufacturing Council. And my question to the panel really is that this project has been operating during the last 2.5 years when we've had a severe supply chain disruption in most markets. And I wonder if they'd like to reflect on what that's meant for refurbishment and remanufacturing, because about 90% of the market in Europe at the moment, which is worth at least 30 billion euros, including medical devices, have discovered that in the last 2.5 years that those companies that have got refurbishment, remanufacturing, reconditioning operations have had a competitive advantage because they've had access immediately to spare parts and to refurbished products to service customers who would otherwise have had to wait for 3, 6, 8, choose your number of weeks or months. And I haven't heard any comment about that this morning, and I'm still rather surprised about it, because we've surveyed our members, and the majority, not all, have had an excellent last 2.5 years.
I think I can at least give one answer. We did implement in the semiconductor crisis, I guess you are referring to that one, a partial buyback scheme to buy back old used or still in use equipment, or equipment still in use with customers, in order to exactly get back specific integrated circuits. That worked pretty well, but still on a relatively small scale. It would possibly not have helped to solve the complete semiconductor crisis for us. I mean, there, honestly, semiconductor supply out of Europe is much too small, period.
The pandemic, followed by the chip scarcity issue, has been a real present to boost the circular economy in our sector, clearly. It naturally extended the lifetime of the product, because there was no brand new product on the market. So this combined with the CSERVEE project, we are seeing a very positive impact. And there is most probably more to come, because it has been a complete change of mindset from customers, from our sales and marketing team. Clearly, it helps a lot on top of the CSERVEE project to convince our sales and marketing team that, well, there is something else that can be done. And we may sell services such as extended warranty, or we may also boost the sale of refurbished product, which are not as bad as what you think. They are even good, because we can have the same warranty than brand new product, which will help you to sell to the customer. So yeah, it's been really very positive in this sense, of course, because there has been some other aspect.
If I may, I would say that it didn't really change, this refurbishment really didn't serve the home appliance industry, because to my knowledge, in the legislation, manufacturers are not allowed to use the recovered components in the production of new products. So therefore, they can only use it in the refurbished products. And the refurbished product sales are really limited. For example, in Turkey, we have our own refurbishment operations, but we only sell them to the internal Arçelik employees from our website, because we didn't really see up to date, we didn't see a potential in the market. I mean, there is a huge potential in the Turkish market for second-hand products. But as I was saying, because this is a mind change, our company never tried it. But instead, what they did was they saw the chip crisis coming, and they reacted like proactively and really made huge contracts with the suppliers beforehand and took the risk in terms of the financial risk. And I mean, for that period, for us, it turned out to be a success story in terms of the supply chain, but it could have gone the other way. But even if it were the other way around, that refurbished product is so limited that it wouldn't really help our sector, unless this limitation really, I mean, is blocked. I mean, there's an enabler that allows us to produce more refurbished products, I would say.
Does that answer the question, or do you have?
That was very helpful. And I think the thing to take out from that discussion was, once again, this issue about using refurbished or remanufactured components in a new product, the perception that there's a legal impediment to doing so. It comes up time and time again. In the past, it was perfectly normal. Mercedes-Benz did it for many years, using components that had been remanufactured in a new vehicle. And they had an X system for marking the parts that had been remanufactured. But the perception is now very widely that that is banned by EU legislation. But when you bother to pull the thread and discover what it is, it's actually a very obscure regulatory concern about consumer legislation. And as long as you are clear that you have done it, there is no such legal constraint, but you have to declare it. And the marketing people typically don't want to declare it. That's the issue. So the legal advice often is not to do it, but more importantly, the marketing advice is not to do it. But I suspect the perception of customers about that issue is rather more important, and it's changing. So why don't we do it? Well, during the last 2.5 years, a leading German manufacturer, who I cannot name because they've said specifically they don't wish to be named, unfortunately, used remanufactured components in new vehicles in order to keep production lines going. They work perfectly well. Why? Because the specification for remanufactured products is exactly the same as the new ones. But the constraint internally was still this thing about we're not permitted to do it, because when the board asked for advice, council reports that they shouldn't do it for the reasons I've explained. But I think there's something that can be done there in getting that clear, the message clear to boards and to their council, that that is not that is not how they should be advised. So I think there's a job there from, I suggest, the Commission, but others, member states' own legal counsel on this issue, because it's continually coming up, and it's a brake on the decisions that otherwise boards would make to use remanufactured components in new vehicles to help the circular economy.
So is there something to answer? Because I heard it's complementing what you already said, that the mindset was one of the biggest challenges and less the legislative boundaries, isn't it? Or did I take that wrong? You are nodding?
Neither nor in our case. I mean, as said, we implemented in this specific case a specific buyback scheme, but we are using used components from equipment taken back since years, and we declare it year for year in our external reports. So obviously we can talk about it, we do it, and it's, as said, relatively small scale because we cannot reuse all components. They do age. We are talking specifically about electronic integrated circuits. They are not to be compared, I believe, physically not to be compared to medicine equipment in particular.
Please, yeah, if you go ahead.
No, I was very happy about that intervention, and I just at the start I was wondering. I thought I know my legislation, and there is no such restriction, but you confirmed. But I mean, you said it's also a mandate, but what can the Commission do about that? What would be your idea that we should do?
Oh, I think that's relatively straightforward. Because Council are advising on risk, clarify that that risk doesn't exist as far as the Commission is concerned. Merely clarifying helps to reduce the tendency. Council, after all, are being asked to give an opinion about the risk to the board, and the board are there to reduce risk. It's their main role. So how do you reduce the chances of council opinion to the board saying don't do this? And I think the best way to do that is through a clarifying statement about how to interpret existing legislation. Because there's the wording of some legislation hints that would, well, more than hints, that this would be ill-advised, which is why it's generally stopped, apart from the economic reasons. And I think that would help to clarify matters, a clearer statement. In documents such as the guide for the CE documents, Blue Guide, but I think more generally, just ask, I would say, ask internally where best to make such statements to encourage the circular economy and remove this presumption against using remanufactured components in new product. Probably more than one place is what I would suggest. You also made one other comment. You said that this no longer is it necessary to use R&D in this space, and I disagree with that, but the up and coming Horizon programme for 22-23 rightly includes 38 million euros for further research on remanufacturing, because in some sectors that will be particularly important. And I think the move from B2B into B2C, which I thought you described really nicely, that's where we have the greatest challenges. And this study, this project has been excellent in identifying the problems in moving from the successes in B2B into B2C products. It's the biggest challenge of all, and it is the most important challenge of all. Companies like Lexmark have been right on the edge of doing this and have proven that it can happen, but we need to push back the boundary into many more products. That's why I think this project's been so important. The lessons from it we mustn't lose, because we've got to keep pushing against the resistance to applying the circular economy to B2C products. Sorry, that was more of a statement than a question. I apologize.
Wonderful, thank you. I like this conversation, but I like also to switch to an online question, and I will read it to the plenary, and you may select who can answer. You mentioned that refurbishing costs, in particular labor costs, is considered a challenge. Could an economy of scale reduce the, for example, labor costs and make this option more profitable? Something I had in mind as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I take the question as I made as a comment, but Orve may comment. Yeah, definitively. This is something that we also analyze within CSERVEES. Volume will help significantly and drastically. And I'd like to tune the comment by the fact that it depends on product, obviously, and it depends on the labor content. But yeah, volume will help. So today it still costs, but we are optimistic that with the volume, we should at least be at a neutral point. Good question.
I had that in mind when I asked about whether evolving or new things might be the right way. For evolving means starting slow or small and then scaling up. Maybe the scale of economy could even convert a non-profitable situation into a profitable. Can even that be? That it is so significant?
It can be. Now there is another parameter which is a very tricky one, which has to be taken into consideration. Is if you want to refurbish product, you need to, at first, to sell brand new product. And as with the pandemic, thanks to the pandemic, and the semiconductor scarcity issue, we're extending the lifetime of the product. Guess what? The product are becoming older and older, and sometimes we can even not refurbish them. So happen a point of time, the volume, we may quickly reach a sort of plateau, and efficiency may be limited here. No crystal ball. Let's see what the coming years will result.
May I say something? So I totally agree with Patrick that economies of scale brings its opportunities, but I think we should look at it sector by sector, because the pandemic in the home appliance sector, because everyone was at home, they were really keen to change their home appliances, and that's why it was the time that we made most of our sales, and that meant producing new products, not extending the lifetime of the product. So that takes the question back to reverse logistics and how the industry was able to recycle those products or recover the components. And it's not really a big performance, as I would say, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So I think it really needs to be checked by industry-specific dynamics of the market.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and possibly the economies of scale won't be or cannot be applied to all industries. If it is B2B with limited numbers of pieces being produced, for example, in recycling, there will not be automation. For example, in many other areas like refurbishment and maintenance, testing, etc., there will be a very low level of automation. At least for us, it is the case. So maybe this economy of scale is in B2C, but cannot fully be transferred or applied to B2B, the opposite direction than we had before.
And I would also say that in terms of R&D spending for these kind of projects, when you look at the eco-design, the ease of dismantling of the electronic products itself is a huge issue that we should be concerned of, because this dismantling time and the recycling abilities, the sorting abilities of these recycling facilities, or even the increasing the technical capability of these refurbishment centers, it's a huge question in terms of even the recyclability of certain materials. So that's the part where I agree with you that a lot of R&D spending needs to be going as well.
Thank you. I have a final question from the online attendees, and I also will read that. if the well, I'm interested who can answer that. If the refurbishment cost is more considering different parameters such as reverse logistics, how small-scale companies can deal with extended producer responsibility? This is, well, as I said,
Can I go?
Yes, please.
I mean, obviously, I think they can't. Because even for us, I don't know the other players in the sector, but for our industry, I can say that it's a huge trouble for us. Because in order to cope with that trouble, it's the reason why we invested in our own WEEE facilities in Turkey, and that's the reason why we are coping with really high risks of WEEE punishment in other countries that we're operating in the EU, because of the lack of coming up with the collection rates and the recycling rates of our product when we outsource this to others in the system. I think that's a big fail for everybody in the system.
Partially agree. We can do something related together with our value-added resellers. That's why they have been mentioned earlier. So they can do part of the, let's say, for example, reverse logistics, in particular, if that's scheduled reverse logistics or optimized and all these things. But yeah, toward a certain lower bound of company or business size, I'm afraid these costs of refurbishment remain relatively high. At least I don't see for very, very small business very effective solutions yet.
But from both, I think, very clear statements. Let me come to a final question that we can close this panel. There are two others to come, and the coffee break, I think, is also expected. Oh, there's another one from the audience? Okay, good. Then we give that priority. And
thank you, Lara Carrier from Electrolux. Thank you very much for the outcomes of the project. It was really interesting. We thought we had the push with the Right to Repair initiative from the Commission on these aspects as you were discussing. Now the initiative is being delayed. We just heard that it's going to be delayed for next year. As the Commission received a negative opinion from the Scrutiny Board, we are actually very much interested into understanding why it's being delayed. But okay, I don't know if you know. Anyway, the types of discussions we're having, and besides all of the challenges you highlighted as well, which are very important to focus on as well, are what to do with the legal guarantees. How are actually the legal guarantees are going to fit in this circular economy, circular business model for refurbished parts, for second-hand goods? Are we extending the legal guarantees? Are we restarting the legal guarantees periods? Are we extending it for the whole product? Are we extending it for the defective parts? So I just wanted to understand whether you had this aspect looked at as well in this project or not.
I mean, yes, we did, and I also have the same questions because it all depends on, and from the surveys, from the feedback we received from the market, the customers really want that warranty, the same. Whatever you do for a new product, they expect you to do the same. Otherwise, it's not interesting for them. So I would say that we have to find the right way and do exactly the same maybe, or look at it cost-wise and do the maximize that we can do. I would answer it like that, really.
In our case, refurbished products get new warranties. Like, to that respect, they cannot be differentiated compared to new products.
By the way,
that holds for the complete product, not the refurbished parts.
Yeah, by the way, this is the same for us too. We provide a 2-year warranty, it's the same. Yeah.
And same for the printer. We do market the product the same way, with the same warranty offer. And this is what we do as example for the cartridges that we remanufacture. We sell them with the same warranty than brand new one.
Thank you for the answers. A final chance for a closing word with a final question before we go into the coffee break. I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of ideas for the future, that you have a lot of additional tasks to approach and to absolve and to find new ways of refurbishment and closing the loop. Some final statements from one or two from the panel group that took some highlights there on the future?
On my end, I would say used product should definitively not be considered and handled as waste, whether on a legislation viewpoint or on a supply chain viewpoint. And today it's not the case, and it drives some issue along the chain.
Well, I don't find the waste legislation to be that restrictive, but I understand the notion. So, but as there was this comment on the right to repair initiative and what's going on under the circular economy action plan this year, I mean, on the one hand, I appreciate that you're optimistic that you say this right to repair initiative will change the situation for you. You know more than I, because I still thought the timetable for the whole package is 30th of November. I don't know whether the other initiatives will also be delayed, but I mean a negative opinion from the board on the impact assessment is a negative opinion, and that means the impact assessment needs to be rewritten. But I think the Sustainable Products Initiative in March was already a major changer, and there will also be, as part of the next package, the green claims initiative. So everything is postponed now. Okay, that makes my life much easier. I liked it very much, but that's off record. Anyway, it will come at some point. Whether it's 3 months later, I think that's the framework that we need for a circular economy and circular economy in a broader sense. I think that is also what I take away here, that you also understand circular economy, not just closing the loop and make the loop rotate faster and make it bigger and bigger and everything accelerates. That you have the same understanding as I, and that we need to slow down that loop, and that we need to optimize and fine-tune how it's turning, and that's what we are working on together. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I would keep this as a very good closing statement for that panel, and I can imagine that the third panel is also bringing up one or two aspects what we already started to discuss. Thank you for the members of the panel. We will see us 10 minutes after 11 in this room again, and for those who are online, take your coffee in the office or at home and re-log in or stay on and come back to the screen 10 minutes after 11. Thank you. I hope everyone online is back as well, having coffee endlessly. We are also back in the room. Thank you for being here still, and we have in the second phase after our coffee break 2 panel discussions, and the first one is about more details on the RECIPS project, where we have an introductory presentation before we go into a panel, as you have seen it from CSERVEES as well. And I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Farazi Asif, I have to say. Now I call him Asif. And from KTH Royal Institute of Technology. He will start with the presentation, and it's followed in a continuous flow of the presentation by Aleš Mihelik from Gorenje and Markus Wagner from CECO in a row. So I introduced all the 3, and Asif, please, if you take over, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So hello everybody. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the RECIPS project. My name is Farazi Asif, but as Konstantin said, you can call me Asif. I work as assistant professor in the Department of Production Engineering at KTH Royal Institute of Technology. And KTH is coordinating the project, and Professor Magnus Victorson is the official project manager. He couldn't be here today, unfortunately. So I coordinate the research in this project, and therefore I'm representing the project today. So RESIPS stands for Resource Efficient Circular Product Service System, and this is a large-scale demonstration project. In the project, we are using a framework called Circular Manufacturing Systems, which is developed by us at KTH in 2011. And since then, we've been using this framework in different research projects, including the RESIPS project. In principle, the framework advocates that for a company to become circular and at the same time be economically, environmentally, and socially performing better than the linear system, a systemic and systematic approach should be taken. Here, systemic approach refers to considering and dealing with the complex interactions that exist between business model, product design, and supply chain. And when we are doing so, we should try to use or utilize system enablers such as ICT platform and customized circular economy tools. And this is exactly what we are trying to do in this project. We are supporting these two demonstrators, one from white goods and one from automotive sector, making them circular using the Circular Manufacturing Systems framework. Now I'll show you a small video clip that we have created in the early phase of the project, which has already started.
RESIPS refers to Resource Efficient Circular Product Service System.
Outdated,
the project is working in the area of circular manufacturing systems and aims to achieve several important goals. The project is composed of two industrial large-scale demonstrators from the automotive and white goods industry. As part of the white goods demonstrator, Gorynia, one of the leading European household appliances producers, will implement an innovative circular pay-per-wash scheme for washing machines in 4 European countries. The white goods demonstrator relates to a tightly connected value chain and will demonstrate the successful implementation of circular manufacturing systems, where Gorynia is in full control of the entire product throughout all stages. That includes design, manufacturing, forward supply chain, customer use phase, reverse supply chain, recovery activities, and redistribution. The demonstrator will develop and implement a pay-per-wash offering for 300 washing machines using co-creation methods. Implementation of this new business model should lead to additional revenues of 150 million euros per year and energy savings equivalent to 750 tons of CO2. As part of the automotive spare parts demonstrator, the Circular Economy Solutions GmbH, together with Robert Bosch GmbH, will streamline the reverse logistics flow for 80,000 used automotive parts, also known as cores, in 2 European countries. This will enable aftermarket stakeholders to close the loop by using a single service provider for reverse logistics and by simplifying the existing complex trade levels. Cores will be identified and evaluated only once, and then shipped directly to the remanufacturer, allowing cost savings of 175 million euros per year and energy savings equivalent to 360 tons of CO2. The project brings together 13 partners from 8 countries and is being coordinated by KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Sweden, with the support of a unique consortium of 4 research and 9 industrial partners. To find out more information about the project, please visit our website follow our LinkedIn page and follow us on Twitter.
So I hope you got a little bit of overview of the project as I have set the scene. So I will now invite my colleagues to give a little bit more information about the two demonstrators that I have mentioned. So thank you very much and enjoy the remaining part of the event.
Hello. So this is my part now of the presentation. So, see how we should go down with this. The grid button. This one. Okay. So the key challenges of the demonstrator, key development, support development, and impacts will be discussed, and of course some lessons learned. I have seen from the previous presentation of the colleague from Archelic that we have some synergies, but also in one sense we are also have some different opinion how to go forward. And now all the companies are more or less oriented so that we are done for the linear economy. This is actually expected from us as the mass production factories, especially in the old branches like white goods industry, where the margins are relatively low. And we are on the other side aware that this is not the proper way to continue, so that the businesses have to be more sustainable, and several actually reasons shows to this. One is also now we see this energy crisis, the chip crisis, so every year we could expect some crisis, whatever. So this is something which brings us that we need to actually start thinking of the different business model. And why I think it's so important, because if we want to have this business model sustainable, so this means that they're good also for the industry, not only for the users. Then we have to have some ideas how to make it win-win, so that the both sides will actually benefit out of this. So the idea was that we deployed washing machines in the 4 different markets in the B2B and B2C schemes. So you see at the previous presentation that was still Austria. There we changed this to the Sweden in the course of the project. But the reason for this was actually that we make some analysis that at the beginning we were thinking that it's a huge difference between the mindset of the people between south and north of the Europe. But then during the analysis we figured out that it's not. So it's actually more the question of how the nation are innovative and how well they perceive the new technology, new things, rather than this traditional mindset, what we see. And I was really surprised actually to learn from this study that Slovenia is actually one of the most open to the new things, while we expect that in south of the Europe, where we have abundance of everything from nature, more or less that the people will be less willing to actually go towards the circular model, but it shows completely untrue. So, and what we actually learned from the previous projects, which we have with the European Commission, that the problem, which was also mentioned before, is the vast logistics, repairs, and all these costs actually took a lot of momentum from this. So we have decided that it's better that we take actually all this, let's say, in our hands, so that we actually go in the direction of developing long-lasting smart appliance, which we will not break during the operation. So this means that we are reducing dramatically the cost of the maintenance. It of course built for condition monitoring, especially built for repairability, refurbishment, recyclability. So we are actually very proud that our appliances in this French repairability index, we get the green, dark green, which is actually the second most repairable brand in the French market. So also the IoT platform has to be developed to support the implementation of the business, and of course all these mobile web applications and the ICT infrastructure that's needed in the backside. So we have evaluated the markets, as I said, for the pay-per-use business model. Also developed long-term product design strategy for different design methodologies. And what was already mentioned, these co-creation workshops actually prove a lot, very beneficial for the whole project. I will explain a bit later what was the benefits of all these things. So, reverse logistics and refurbishment and manufacturing capability was studied in detail. So, supply chain were actually simulated multi-method simulation modes, so that we know, for example, how dense should be the structure for forward logistic and backward logistic, so that it's still optimum. And I could tell you that actually this proves that it had to be in circles around with the diameter 200 kilometers outside. This is actually the environmental cost is actually getting too high. And also the time needed to actually for only the roads, it's actually is going increasingly up. So this means that for the country like Sweden, this could pose a problem. We have also analyzed economic environmental impacts, and here we also have figured out that in principle that with this sort of pay-per-use business models is very difficult to start. But on the other side, it's when you start, it's actually it's in principle profitable business, but actually the main obstacle which you see is here, this minus at the beginning, if you look at the profit side from the company. So this means that based on the calculation which we have made, so that in principle the project is making some 18 months of loss. And this is in terms of how often we are doing actually balance sheets in the company, which we are doing it on monthly basis. So this means that one had to look for 18 months that we have minus. So it means that you have to be really very committed to go for this. But since we know that this was a problem, we also figured out that, for example, how we could also let's say go around, for example, by external financing, or what was already said, for example, that use European Innovation Fund or some other business models. And maybe for the environmental parts, also we have seen that that actually the impact is from around 20 to 40% with these business models. So we all think that we should start with first with actually the most ecologically conscious people, but in principle it shows that is, the impact is actually the lowest there, because they already behaving in an environmentally friendly way. So actually the majority of gain could be done with the ordinary people, where we could expect even up to 40% of the, let's say, environmental reduction. So we are actually, one of the topics which we are also discussing is how to actually change the behavior of the people, and especially in the environment when you don't see how they behave, because our previous actually understanding and observation were, for example, that the people were always, if you ask them, okay, everyone was for the green, but when they come to the shop, they actually were not willing to pay for this. Now, I must say that the last 1.5 years, the situation is changing dramatically, but 5 years ago it was like this. And the idea was how to actually make people change in the environment when you don't see what they're doing. And this is common, for example, in a laundry room in the multi-apartment house.
And we figured out that, for example, with the gamification style, that actually we could make people to contribute towards higher goal, so that they actually are willing to transfer under this condition also. But for the end, we think that also clear and transparent marketing and is necessary, and there's no room for greenwashing. So lesson learned. Actually, I think already mentioned is that this problem at the beginning. So we also see that the customers are seeking for the complete solution, not only a washing machine, but for example also the dryers. So we have some internal conflicts we could discuss during the the discussion about this profitability and let's say cannibalization of the sales and so much, and also challenging flexible pricing, how to make it so that it's profitable for all, and so much and so on. So. But on the other side, I also would like to emphasize this, what was already said, that actually for example, cross-border transfer of used appliances is now considered as a waste. So it's going actually like a waste transport to waste exporting. So it's quite complex. And I think that this is posing difficulty, and also the specific solution in the different countries actually what we showed that the pricing also in the different countries have to be different. So, and of course we had to find this balance between the privacy and sensitivity of the privacy of consumers. So, going forward, we are committed to scale up this pay-per-use business model, to collect data to prevent actually to make them more satisfied this service, implement different technology to make value recover digitalized, because we are convinced that this is very important. And I think that also what was already mentioned, that we should work much more on the spare parts recovery from the appliances, because now we see that actually it's the mandate that we have the spare parts up to 14 years after the last product put on the market. So this means that actually the money is not flowing for 40 months. So this means the customer, if you don't have such business model, will pay this price anyway in the product or in the spare part. So this was all from my side. Thank you.
Hello, also from my side. I have to see this. Is the green? Okay. My name is Markus Wagner. I'm working at Circular Economy Solutions, very long name, so we usually abbreviate CECO. And we are running a reverse logistic network for the return of used car parts for the purpose of remanufacturing. And in the automotive demonstrator in the RECEPS project, we have developed and demonstrated a service, which I'm going to show you a bit more about that now. Agenda, I'm not going through this. It's the same, following the same structure like Aleš said before. First, I would like to show you this picture here. It's a kind of a typical supply chain in the automotive aftermarket. You can see here there's the remanufacturer, and on one hand the producer and the automotive workshops, which are actually repairing the cars when you or me as a car driver go there. And in between, there is certain levels of dealers, wholesalers, or here in this sense, buying groups, which are bundling the buying power of certain market participants. And I was listening very interested to the discussion we had before, where you also were mentioning that the involvement of the dealerships is an issue here, because this is exactly what we are looking at and what we also saw as a challenge. So by today, if you see it on top, when a remanufactured product is sold via several of these stages, every stakeholder, they pay for the product as such, and they pay on top a surcharge, a financial incentive, which is credited back when the damaged part is actually returned. And but as you see that this is sold over these stages, this is always a bilateral thing. So when the part is returned, it needs to go back to the one where you got it from, because from this party you would like to have your incentive back. You know? And The problem is that it's not so linear and straightforward as you could see it here, because there are sometimes trade levels overjumped, and depending on availability, things are cut, there are shortcuts and stuff like that. And here, if we assume the buying group is the one in the middle, they have negotiated some commercial conditions with the remanufacturers, but usually the wholesaler level or other market participants, they also have direct contracts with remanufacturers, which they also use to purchase parts. So that makes it even more complicated to deduct at the end where these, the used parts need to go in order to regain the financial incentive. So this is done. The problems we were mentioning there, the cores must travel the same way backwards than forwards, regardless if this is the most efficient logistic-wise, just because the crediting is on the line. The core is inspected repeatedly in the supply chain because everyone is checking, okay, is it the right part? Does it comply to the criteria? Can I really accept it? The inspection decision, you can imagine if several people in this chain trying to take the same decision, it could be different. So that means the ones in the middle, they are suffering because they have probably accepted a part from the predecessors, and then they turn around and want to hand it over to the next one, who is then saying, sorry, I consider this as too much damage, or it's not fitting into my program or anything. So there is risk involved. And basically then the question is at the end, who has to credit whom and to what amount and commercial condition. And we were also coming across these challenges, like which kind of interest is there on the market participants, and I tried to put this here for a remanufacturer, which you can see on the left side of the slide, and a dealer on the right side. So for the remanufacturer, they're running a production, yeah? So they are interested in the used parts in a reliable quality and in a steady, reliable flow, because the production needs to run. Yeah? So the question for them is, okay, how can I put incentives on these parts to make them come back? And if I do that, how can I make them physically come back? Yeah, so the logistics service, scalable in all the markets where I'm active. And if these things then come back, I said there's a financial incentive in the sense of a deposit involved, so this is quite some money. So how can I stay on top of the economics and control my financial risks, which are resulting from that? Sorry. And if then I take back parts from my customers, how can I quickly provide them a reliable feedback on what I have received, what kind of quality there is, and what will be the crediting that they can expect. On the other hand, the wholesalers, I mean, they are traders. Yeah, they like to buy cheap and sell expensive, and their main idea is to provide availability in the market and bridge this gap between a producer and a user, a buyer, basically at the end. So for them, they are basically saying, okay, I'm not in business only with one remanufacturer, but with several. And all of them have separate procedures, separate criteria, separate economic conditions, and a lot of paperwork I need to comply to. So this complexity is really killing me, and it's not, that's not brings fun to me to sell Riemann parts if I compare that to new. And this is also then what they ask themselves, okay, my role is to sell car parts, so why do I have to treat these dirty old stuff when it comes back? Is that really my job in here, and what do I get for that? And if I do that, I mean, identification of the old parts, technical evaluation, how could I reduce my effort if I have to do that when I want to sell Riemann, and I have to, without losing actually the control if I reduce the effort in that. And quite similar to the remanufacturers, how can I overlook the commercial situation and not lose money on the business? And that was our starting point to think, can we have a service, digital and physical service, which could overcome this bridge and have benefits for remanufacturers and also for dealers by increase the transparency in this market and help them understand the situation better. So going back, let's say, thinking-wise to the first picture, this is how we did that. We introduced a model which we called call return options. There's options, or sometimes it's called warrants. We borrowed that from financial industry, where it is kind of a standardized contract which grants you the right to sell or buy something in a given period for a predefined price. And we try to adapt these concepts to this right to return a core for a predefined price, which is the surcharge or deposit in that sense. And By that, we could track that in a digital platform, which we have developed in the course of the project, and create transparency out of this situation. So who has received what financial incentive, and how many parts are still to be returned, and where do they need to be shipped? Yeah, who is, let's say, granting these rights of commitment? And also that enables us to decouple the physical logistics from the financial clearing. So that means if we can do this digital-wise, building this chain, we have the freedom to optimize the reverse logistic independent from these bilateral conditions which I was talking on before. So in the proposal, in the video, it was shown shipping directly back from the workshop. That unfortunately does not make sense in all the cases, but it is completely decoupling the financial flow from the physical flow, and that gives freedom for optimization. Yeah, and when we do this inspection, we could also inspect that in our infrastructure and use this result of the inspection and make it, let's say, transparent to all the stakeholders connected, which will save the repeated checking in the chain, effort-wise, and also degrading risk, as there is no deviation in decision then anymore. Okay. With that developments out of the project, we created a service offer consisting of digital and physical components, and we tried this out with 2 automotive wholesalers over a period of, I think, more than 18 months now, or, yeah, something like this. And the service offer for them, it consists of the core transports, picking these cores up at their sales outlet and bringing them to the remanufacturer on their behalf, with a short stopover in one of our inspection centers, which is where we have trained people and a connection to the platform I just shown before. And they are able to identify, sort, and technically evaluate the status of these used car parts using the procedures of the remanufacturers where the stuff need to go. We can sort and storage these parts and send them to the remanufacturers then, and we can create the transparency via the digital platform. So in the course of the project, we have treated or handled more than 80,000 cores following this new process and service with the platform together. So quite proud to say that we jumped over the threshold of 80,000 by the end of August. So now we are going beyond. And it's taken really well, and we are really happy to continue on that till the end of the project. Economic impact. This is really something where we're also proud of. We underestimated in the project to collect all the various procedures of the remanufacturers, the commercial rules, the technical criteria, and all that stuff. And with the help of our demonstration wholesalers companies, we were able, during the project, to collect all this information from the companies you're seeing here. So now we consider our platform as a really broad market coverage in the automotive aftermarket, which means any new service user would directly benefit from that knowledge, so that we can make this complexity digestible for them and being not in the way of processing Riemann. Transparency, I talked about that. These kind of cockpits we provide to the service users, which gives them a clear view on what kind of products we have taken back on their behalf, where we have shipped them, and in what kind of quality they have come back. Control of financial risks. You see here a screenshot from the platform, and the highlighted area, it shows that there's a high pile of core return options which are going to to expire from the balance. So after that date, and this is a month which is below there, this option becomes obsolete, let's say. The value is disappearing. Yeah. In the past, that was not transparent to the wholesalers at all. Yeah. So that was happening in the back, and they could not make any decisions on that. And with that transparency now, they can have informed decisions and think about how could we cope with that situation. Can we deliver parts faster? Can we buy some parts maybe from somewhere to acquire this value? Or maybe can we transfer these options, or even ask of the remanufacturer, and can we have a prolongation, so in order that we still can bring back the parts. Reduce rejection, meaning rejection of parts meant for remanufacturing. You can also see that it's quite transparent here. What I would like to highlight on this one, you can see there's total rejection rate 20% roughly. And these columns or bars show that if you sum up the first one and the third one, it makes 6,000 of this roughly 8,000. These reasons is it's not a return program or no option available, meaning 3/4 of the rejection in this example, it's not due to technical reason. It's just because the parts are, there's no option available, I don't know where to send it, I send it too late, and all these kind of stuff. Yeah. So what I think we saw in the demo, that technical rejection was overrated compared to this structural process-wise rejection which we have seen in the project. Benefit logistics. I said we are running a logistics service. On the left side, you see how the situation has been with a fictional wholesaler with outlets in Germany before. So they were collecting the parts of a lot of different remanufacturers, and they sent them all separate to there. And they had a couple of outlets in Germany, so they had a lot of these stars which you see on the left side. And this means a lot of small boxes hardly fill up, a lot of shipments to send around, and not very efficient. And besides, you have to repeatedly check the core in this process. And what we did in the demo phase is what you see on the right side. So sending them all to a centralized location where we have the people and the connections to this platform and transparency in order to have this decision. But also we could do, of course, bundling that, meaning the outlets, they could put all the different parts of all remanufacturers just in one box. We bring them to our location, we split them, identify them, sort them, and then also, as we do that not only for one wholesaler, but hopefully for a lot of them later, we could also do a better bundling in the relation between our service point to the remanufacturer. Okay, and why all that fuss? That's why. I'm not going to talk about the benefits of remanufacturing, and I think these figures, these or others, they really depend on the product or something, but I think it's clear that remanufacturing gives a significant benefit to the ecology. And we see, as we are not remanufacturing ourselves, we see us as an enabler for that. Yeah? So we want to help companies that they can make business on remanufacturing without being burdened with this full complexity and the burden of running a reverse logistic network and all these procedures by themselves. Yeah, and this is what we would like to bring in here. Lessons learned. I have to hurry up, I think. I really liked in the discussion that you said that we missed out on the traders, and this is exactly what we also saw in our project. So the trade levels, they are burdened with the most complexity. They carry the highest risk of losing the incentive in this procedure, and which was surprising also, we thought they might have the problem towards their customer, the automotive workshops, for instance, but we had to realize that they found it much more tricky to operate with the remanufacturers on the other end of the chain, which was quite surprising for us, and this is what they needed support. Even though when we wanted during the project to involve wholesalers, it was difficult to make them aware of the expected benefits which this system could bring to them, and therefore we are very grateful that we could try this out in Recips and have some data now, which is also giving us a good position to market that and to show that to other wholesalers and to involve that. Yeah, remanufacturers, we also have something there for them, maybe not completely tailored, but we will work on that. But what was new for us is that sometimes for remanufacturers, they're interested in the part, but they put some strange commercial rules which actually hinder the optimal allocation of parts and options. So for instance, they claim that they only want to have the part back in their product box, in their branding. Yeah? They accept products of a competitor, but they have to be in their box. Yeah? And this is then sometimes this is not optimal for the allocation of parts. Technology acceptance, wholesalers, sometimes small and medium-sized companies, also difficult for them if you want to connect them to a digital platform. Then overall import of spare parts from countries outside of EU, which are very, very cheap and killing the economies of remanufacturing. Openness, trust, and transparency. I talked about this one-time selection. This will only work if there is trust that the entity, the third party, is doing that correctly and in a trusted way. And this is also an issue here, which is very high on the agenda, that we can prove that. Way forward, we want to engage more users on the platform to maximize the benefits. Also more remanufacturing users. Therefore, we'd like to add more features benefiting a producing company. I mean, now we focus more on the traders, yeah, but adding more features which are dedicated to producing companies and put that in specific portals. But we are also very proud that both wholesalers which we were working on in the demo phase intend to continue with the service after the end of the project. And we also ramped up a third wholesaler on the platform just last week. So it seems that this really is giving some benefit for them and working for them. Yeah, so then core management as a service, I said that, ready to use out of the box. And also our data shows 10 to 20% of the options expire unused. That means this is really a potential where we could all work on and have more parts back as it is intended. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus. You can stay on stage. And I also ask, hold on a second, I also ask Ruth de Bruyker from Significant AB to the panel. Hello. And if you don't mind, Hans Christian, once again, we are super happy. Well, the modus operandi is identical. I welcome you, everyone. I don't have to introduce, yeah, you have already presented. We got insights from the project. And again, let me start with, in principle, the same question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the biggest challenge you faced in your project? So you can select who wants first. I guess you're pretty familiar with your roles in the project.
I mean, I've already identified the challenges, so maybe I should give the floor to someone else. Maybe.
So maybe I should do it then. For us, it was actually a challenge which we see is that the companies are made for the linear organization. And for example, implementing new business model, we constantly were struggling about who is responsible for what, because it was no actually formal responsibility in the organizational charts. So it was always on top of something. So what you normally do, you had to do always on top of something. So we were looking how, let's say, if we want to do it in the future. So the idea is that we should actually create our own company, which will actually start from scratch by doing the servitization of the product. But on the other side, I'm convinced that this had to be done by the OEMs, because we are in the, we own the process. So this means that we could influence for how long it's made, how robust it's, what are the failure rates. All this we are testing all the time. So we have the control of this so that we could actually benefit of this, because we see it that, for example, if small SMEs are doing this, then they normally are buying the product from the market. And there it's these additional costs which are, for example, repair, logistic. In one of my slides, which I didn't comment it was actually a figure so that you could see that actually these costs are exceeding the cost of the production, this logistic and repair costs. So it's very crucial that we could optimize these costs so that are not happening. And this is why we choose actually the path for long durability products. And here I must also challenge a bit the Commission, because actually what is happening now with these extended warranties, which are in the pipeline, actually are not helping this kind of the businesses, because in these businesses the user gains, but also we earn. But for example, if we will go towards extended warranties, this means that actually this cost will be only on the burden of the companies. So this means that sooner or later will be transferred to the cost of the product.
To the cost of the first product, or to the cost of the refurbishment of the first product?
So maybe I can also say something about our challenges. I mean, we are not directly in remanufacturing, but more in the business process around it, yeah, being an enabler. And for us, a major challenge was, and still is, to explain actually what we are doing and what we are worked on, because this is quite complex, these structures of trade levels and reverse logistics and flow of surcharge and stuff like that. And this is a challenge here when you have to catch an audience in a short period of time, but it was also very difficult in the beginning of the project to motivate wholesalers to see their benefit in that, and to understand in what kind of situation they could be when they were participating in that. And this was a major challenge for us, to get this into the heads of people in trade levels and make them engage into that.
Can I comment more, you also, because I think that, for example, what you show with this option system is crucial maybe for this kind of the businesses in the future, because not all of you know that, for example, a recycler are recycling only the parts which actually they have buyers for. So even if the product or the material is recyclable, it's not necessary that it will be recycled, because you have to have on the other side someone willing to buy. And by this option system, actually the dismantlers know that it's demand for the specific parts, which they could then properly dismantle.
So it's a matter of, no, if I understand that right, the market expects, so there's a demand, but it has to be made visible, and it has to be linked between the actors. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Maybe the thing is also, if you're talking about recycling, you say like, okay, I need copper, steel, plastics, whatever. Yeah. So this is material based. But if we are on the level of remanufacturing, we are on product level. Yeah. And if I go back to automotive remanufacturing, from a starter motor for a Smart, I cannot make a starter motor of an MAN truck. That doesn't work. Yeah, so we are on the product level. So therefore, it's crucial to identify what product that is, and you have to express this demand, meaning that there is some money involved if you return this part. You have to express this demand and make that transparent. And this is missing in some parts, so therefore people are not behaving in this way, because this incentive, it's not clearly visible for them and not working as an incentive then in that context. Yeah? And this is something which we were trying to tackle with this platform and the transparency on the options.
If you say people, that's what you showed on the one slide with these different stakeholders and actors in the reverse logistic, or also other people or other stakeholders in mind?
I mean, we are focusing on the reverse supply chain, yeah. But the thing is, it's not only logistics; it's the management of these financial incentives. Because whenever a remanufactured part is sold, there is money charged, which will be credited back if a used part matching to this remanufacturing part comes back in a defined period of time, in a defined status, technically wise, and also matching to this product. As I said, if I dismantle a starter from a Smart, I cannot send it back if I have purchased a starter motor of an MAN truck before, and vice versa. Yeah, so there is this allocation of products on a certain level is necessary, and this is something which was missing, and it takes a lot of effort to pile up this data and make it digestible. Yeah.
Learned that their information management is kind of development from the project. Can you maybe elaborate more on that? Because I hear that was the challenge.
Yes, okay. I've been working on the ICT platform in the, not the automotive, the washing machine part. And there we definitely had challenges. We already discussed that you are not replacing a business with another business, you're evolving it. So also the ICT platform exists for a product business model. So you have to adapt it and work with what is there, and with the standards or non-standards which are there, and evolve it into a product service system ICT platform. So that's one part. But for us as a company working in the aftermarket, this has been very good because it has learned us. We have a lot of medium-sized companies that are each of them too small to build a platform like this. But they gather together and build this platform. And we also heard today that ICT is not only about technical things, but also the human factor. So they work together, even though they sometimes are competitors on the platform. And now we also want them to take the next step and work together on information. Because we have a lot of Nordic customers in the agricultural industry who are using the same parts. And if they would know where the refurbished parts are and where to send them, they could cooperate, and you would get a better scale, because each of them are too small to do this. So that will be the next challenge. But the challenge in the project was definitely what Aleš already said, the different standards or non-standards, and also changing part of the platform halfway in the project.
So your platform develops to a social media platform?
Not really. Our customers are the OEMs, and typically we always have been working business to business, making it easy to find the parts, to buy the parts, hopefully in the future to buy refurbished parts and send the old ones back. But we also see more that they all want to go to B2C. The right to repair was also mentioned, that in our platform you also can find these instructions. So the information should go all the way to the end customers. But it will not become a new Twitter or something like that. Not yet.
With having an eye on the European Commission and the programs and actions there, if I hear that, I'm thinking on the digital product passport as one element. That's at least what I can link to. But probably also this material database, which is developed with the intention to motivate recycling, where others see other elements in it, but can Commission or one of the project members elaborate there a little bit? How is it linked? Is that the element that makes everything fluently, or is where do we stand there?
Maybe I could do it, since we are also part of the Commission project regarding this threat regarding digital product passport, where we are actually trying to do this everything. But we also seen, for example, now that just yesterday we had discussion in Aplia that, for example, in Commission now it's discussion whether these databases should be centralized or decentralized, and all this discussion. Our position is that we should have a hybrid system, so that the actually data which is already there, which is regarding April data, skip data, this data about the material of concerns, this should be used what is in the Commission. All the rest should be decentralized, but to the standard, so that whatever interface will be able to get it from the different suppliers. But we are for sure supporting this initiative, and so as already said before, we are not even so keen that this right to repair, we in industry we think we understand differently. So for us, right to repair doesn't mean that every one of you could dismantle the whole washing machine and assemble it back. So this means that the right to repair has different levels. So this means one is done by the professional, something could be done by the, let's say, individual, and all these rights had to be tackled according to a common standard there. And also regarding the discussion which you have, the right to repair doesn't mean that we will give free knowledge to everyone, because now we have to take care that the product after repaired are at the same standard as before, as we say. For this, we have trainings with our repairmen, our network, and so we cannot just let untrained repairmen to do the repair. So it's a lot of discussion will be here in this topic still, but for sure the direction I think is proper, so that we will have product that will last longer.
So is it more a right to let it repair than a right to repair?
No, in principle for the user is the right to repair, because at the end the result will be a repaired appliance with a longer life. So this is maybe also, since I'm about these rights, I could comment some of the topic which was before by the colleague from the Archelic. Regarding this, for example, the acceptability of the users regarding the use of repaired appliances. So if you look, it's very different. No one of us have a problem to go to a library to learn the book and read the book which could be full of microbes because someone ill before was reading it, or I don't know, you buy the used car. But for example, when you ask the people whether they will be willing to buy, let's say, the washing machine which was previously used, then you have the different topics. So this is why I'm convinced that we also have serious discussion with TU Delft, so that, for example, I said, we sterilize the washing machines before we sell you. This triggers the mind of the people. What the hell were doing this, the washing machine before that needs to be sterilized? If you don't say it at all, no one thinks about it. So this is actually that we should to provide service, not actually claiming these sentences. And I think it's very similar, and this is maybe also for the Commission regarding this recycled parts. Because at the moment, no one is asking us how much actually recycled metal you have in your washing machine. Because all metal is there recycled. But for example, if we put all the recycled metals in the washing machine, but if we put the used spare parts, no, this is not a new product anymore because it's already a part. So I think that should be on us, on the industry. If we give the commercial warranty for 5 years, whether we build or not build the used parts, this is our decision, not actually the legislation. I think this is actually hindering also this circular economy a lot.
Hans Christian, I see you in the pole position.
Yeah, no, but I don't think we are that far apart. You don't want us to over-regulate your sector, do you? No. Okay. No, but I think we both agree that the right to repair is not a right to extend do-it-yourself. So I don't know where this comes from, but I don't think this is where we are heading. So I wouldn't worry about that. And one thing that you mentioned with the disinfection and hygiene and COVID and whatever, I mean that's a tightrope walk, because you have the same problem at low-key services with repair cafes. I mean, they also had to take this decision whether they would go full protection and message that they are super clean, but yes, that's probably where people start thinking. I mean, yes, is this all that dirty, or is this necessary? And I mean, but that's in your remit. Lots of the things that you mentioned about communication, and technically speaking and legally speaking, a refurbished product is a new product. Full warranty. I don't know whether for the same period of time, but that's also to some extent your decision. But this is a new product. There's no restriction that you must not use recovered spare parts. So a lot of this is about communication, and I think you managed these things brilliantly in these two strands of work, because this really looks to me as a success story. So I think you mastered that, and for me the question is what would be the follow-up now? Would it be more funding? How will you deploy that? You're already scaling up for the washing machines, and
yeah,
but before we play, I mean, in RTD, I think we saw that coming, and we already had in 2018 and under Horizon 2020 we had this call on information needs for circular value chains, this cradle to cradle call, and we sort of anticipated all these digital passport things when this was when the discussion just started. And we have that now in Horizon Europe again, and we will be even more specific, and you have the digital passport aspect basically in all our circular economy calls, and you have it in the sectoral calls in other clusters, not just in my cluster, this cluster 6, the environment, circular economy, bioeconomy focus, but you also have it in the industry cluster, you have it in the topics on construction, for example. It's not directly your remit, your portfolio, but I think we are supporting this wherever we can. I mean the SPI and what's coming next, end of this year, beginning of next year, and under the circular economy package, it's just a framework. I mean, there's some room for maneuvering from a technical and legal perspective, but there's also implementation needs, and I mean that's why I really enjoy being here and listening to you, because that's something that we can take up in future research and innovation programming. I mean, this is more about innovation than about research, because you already past that phase, in my opinion. This is really about getting things to the market now.
Maybe if I can add something to that, just briefly.
Yeah.
Because what you said, I think is very important about this communication, and I think we had this in the other panel. We heard this as well, and I think you were claiming that to have let's say an open word and give you have a certain interpretation of the law and saying, okay, there is no obstacle, but the risk is perceived differently sometimes in industry, yeah. And I also have the feeling that this is a friction in communication, yeah, and then that could probably resolved in a way as you proposed it, quite straightforward, and give some hints on how to interpret this thing and what is the background of this procedure, and that it is not hindering, that on the other hand it should give security. Yeah?
Maybe Marcus.
Basically about EPR and introducing sustainability measures, etc. It costs. I mean, if you have any smart ideas how this can be resolved, tell us, because I don't know. I see that. I mean, we are a bit in denial, but it's just true that EPR costs and these costs will very often be transferred to the end consumer, to the customer, and I don't see how this can be fixed. I just don't see it. But we cannot just skip these measures just because
Yes,
there are the costs involved. So.
No, but I will explain later, but first I will answer to your first question. But before maybe answering, I should also say what the colleague from Beko said, that from the industry point of view, the support of the Commission for this kind of project is of crucially important, because otherwise we will do it much later, or at all, I must say. But it's actually out of this, for example, example, what I see, what comes out, what you say, how we will continue out of this, because actually we were first optimizing the products, so this means make it much more durable, repairable, so that it could last and fulfill all the criteria I'm dealing according to how to make it microbiologically clean, how to also, for example, because I'm convinced that the solution for the washing is actually in the multi-flat environments, the cellular laundry, because instead of 40 washing machines, you could do it only with 3 or 4 appliances. And this is, if you look from the environment impact, it's much bigger, but for this, we had to prove that actually, when you go into the washing machine, that it's actually disinfected. And these are the projects we are doing now. On the other side, we, as a company, are completely ready to transition away from the extruded polystyrene, so we have a solution for the whole company from the bio-based packaging material. For example, if I continue regarding this, what was the problem at the recovery of the spare parts? Actually, the issues are coming related how to assess whether this is good or not, because it's a bit more complex product than it's yours. So we have thousands of components there inside. And this is why we are actually going into the area of failure prediction. So we are also very lucky that we got European project for this, so that we will explore it and we will use this information both for the customers, so that we will be able to tell them in advance that they need to repair before some bigger damage happens, but on the other side also to use this knowledge for let's say, refurbishing the spare parts and assessing the spare parts and using the spare parts in order to be able to provide the guarantee, because we say that it will be no greenwashing. So if I put a product on the market and say, even if it's used one, that it will last 5 years, then it should last 5 years. Otherwise, we could be penalized heavily for greenwashing. So it's a lot of challenges actually in front of us, and I think that it's really important that we have the opportunity to do it together with the different partners.
Well, now I heard again technology, yeah, points about technology where I am coming from, that is logic for me, but I like to stress once more again, in my opinion, the more important scalability factor, which is information. Because that can scale, I think, much more to many more actors in the supply chain, or even extrapolation to other products, yeah, with the same system. Can you maybe say something about that?
If I
go a bit away from
of course, this is the second part of the question which I didn't answer, is actually that we are thinking of actually to build it so in the system so that it will be actually be available in all market for the all product categories. And for example, we are already having some initiatives on the ovens, and so it will go like an avalanche. I'm convinced that in 10 years, if we will visit it, the discussion will be completely different.
And if I may, add to that, I think I will go back to your comment about the social media for, OEMs or manufacturers. And as a researcher, I don't think this is an absurd idea, because in circular economy, we talk about, collaboration of value network. And when we're talking about material passport, we are talking about information and data that is owned by different people. Now, if you don't want to share that information, you will not have a material passport that is useful. Now, how do you get that? Maybe social media kind of thinking is actually the solution, that you have a platform where different owner of the data can provide this information, and then you compile that information and then create something useful for the whole life cycle. So I don't think what you said probably, I don't know, out of something that came to your mind is not an absurd idea. And in fact, we did some exploration when it comes to research project that, okay, how can we create a sort of social media platform sort of thinking where different entity can provide data, yet maintaining the security of data and maintaining the ownership of the data. So this is a very good point and relevant point in my opinion.
Perfect, wonderful. Something to add from IT?
Well, I agree fully. I think I may have reacted like it was negative, but I like, as you say, the idea of having a platform where companies share information. Of course, there's a lot of information they don't want to share, so that must be very secure. And then there is information they want to share to their trusted partners, and then there's information they want or must share with other partners or non-partners, other service workshops, and then there is information they want to share with everybody. So that's really an IT issue, to make sure that we have that platform and they feel also the confidence to share and they see the advantages of it.
Is that a hint for the decision whether it's centralized or decentralized, that data, that product data information?
No, I think that the centralized and decentralized only from the industry point of view. This means that security, that you know that you own actually the how to make the policy about the data. So this is mainly only perception. What we want to achieve is that we will not do the double work. So this means that we will not have the same data twice in the system, so that the data which is already there is used. And the majority of the data regarding the repair, the components, the material composition, everything we have in our ICT system of the production ICT system. So this data is already available. If it will be centralized, this means that someone will have to transfer it to someone else.
I also would like to add, because you said about the technology, and also I think we heard it also in the first discussion, in remanufacturing technology of the own products for an OEM, it's not the challenge technology-wise, because a company who has created this product initially, they have access to everything what they need to do also remanufacturing. They have the people, the know-how, equipment, suppliers, technical data, everything which is needed. But what they don't have is the old parts in the right structure and in the right condition, which they can use. And I think in other fields it might be also feasible that remanufacturers not only reman their products but also competitor products and bring them back into the market. And we see that in automotive industry this is quite normal, that this is also happening on component level, that components are remanufactured and sold again as remanufactured by, even though it's not your own product. And I think in that sense, exchange of data, reliable data, is then also crucial and maybe even a win-win if for companies. Yeah.
But I see, for example, here one problem coming. This is actually this connected with the recycled content in the let's say our appliances. We will now all claim that we have recycled content and also, let's say, material composition. But on the other side, we know that it's now paper based. So this means that we get a proof from the distributor that, for example, when we put the plants on the market, this recycled content was such. But we know that the recycled means that it's not the same all the time, so that it could vary. But on the end, it will be on us, on the users, that someone will say, when they will do the analysis, they will say, oh, we see one component is here and was not claimed, because we got it from the recycled material. So this means that in order to be fully compliant, that for every batch of the material which we will receive, we will have to have new composition or be very strict about the composition. So this is what I say. And we have already such experience. I'm developing also some technologies, let's say, which will automate the washing. And we have seen, for example, one of the producers of the textile, that the declaration is away from what is actually they're claiming. And then when you think about this is the company which has the most, and they're claiming most recycled material in. So it could be a problem for the future if we will be so strict on imposing without the tolerances for such things for the producer. Because at the end, this is all what is hindering this the introduction of the circular model and recycled material.
Alesh, is that maybe? Oh, sorry.
I think this was for the Commission, but I don't think this is a realistic fear, or is it? I mean, clearly there are reporting, ways of reporting that are substandard. I think we all agree on that. And there are electronics value chains, consumer electronics, where traditionally you don't have that many component suppliers. And RoHS compliance, for example, compliance with chemicals legislation is often documented just in the way that the supplier says, yeah, this component is compliant, and that will certainly not suffice. I mean, in the other extreme would be that you have a completely overblown system that covers everything from chemicals compliance with full material declaration, a complete transparent product, and you just need to extract through some magic algorithms the data that civil society needs for the green claims, and that several operators along the value chains need, and all that, so that you have like a cornucopia, you have a full set of data, and you just extract and combine and interpret whatever you need for one specific purpose. But I think this will just not happen because it's not realistic. So I don't know where this is going in the end, but I mean, this is the moment where you...
I'm worried this because actually in this green claim initiative, greenwashing, green claiming, so this will be there, it's actually written that this had to be verifiable. So if it's verified, the document that we have, this is then okay. If it's actually someone else will do the test, and then we could obviously have a problem, could have a problem.
What's feasible and how things can be verified.
We might transit already into the final panel, but I think there exactly this kind of discussion was planned. For the sake of time and having an eye, although my heart breaks into two pieces where I'm absolutely in favor of having such conversation, but we also have to be respectful for the final panel. I would go into this room for a final question. I think if one is here available. Mohammed, yeah, if you were the first, then we have online as well. That's the reason why I'm restricting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. First of all, I would like to thank the presenters for informative presentation and the panel members for thought-provoking discussion. I think my question is regarding the circular economy business model. Let's start with you, Alex, in terms of washing machine. So the per use concept, how does it compare with the traditional laundrette? I assume that it's B2C.
No, it's both.
It's both. Okay.
But I must be honest. So if when we started with this business model, the first goal, the target was from our marketing department that they say that they want to earn as much as they earn now, possibly more.
So sorry, Alex, I haven't finished my question. One is about how does it compare, and two, in terms of transferability. Say, for example, the washing machine to the other household appliances. You can't say paper cooking or whatever. So how does it go to cooker, for example?
Oh, but cooker, I will explain this. So the goal was that we actually have the same, let's say, that we earn. So this win-win, so that it's consumer and for us. And the rationale was within this. So, for example, that if you build appliance which lasts 10 times longer, the cost of this appliance is not 10 times higher. So in this value in between, we have enough maneuvering space that it's actually worth for the consumer, but also on our side that we gain some money, because we as industry were here to gain money. And for this, we actually do the analysis. We took the, let's say, the data from the washing powder association about the washing habits, the temperature of the program which they choose. So, and then we calculate some, let's say, average users, so that we will not earn with the single appliance everything, but in the mass, it's planned that actually we will earn more than we do it now. And for the second part of the question, of course, you will not pay for one chicken in the oven, but you will pay for probably time used or something like this. Yeah.
I don't know if people hear me. It's just thinking about the transferability of the business model, not only cross-sector, but within the same.
Yeah, but we have seen in one of the previous projects, actually what we have, this was a RESCOM project. It was very difficult. Out of 4 business models, only, for example, with the washing machine, we were able to find, let's say, sustainable forward. Some, for example, decided not to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Very briefly for Marcus regarding the automotive. And they had a very high rejection, I think 28% or something. So I just want to understand how do you deal with it? What is the circularity of the rejected parts? Because maybe I didn't catch it. And did you look at, maybe at the outset, how to design parts, the primary part of the building, so that you can, it'll be designed for circularity, for reuse, for remanufacturing, if you have considered part of the demo? Thank you.
Yeah. So regarding the rejection, if a part is rejected, that means not capable for remanufacturing. Yeah, this is the rationale which is behind that, and then it usually goes to recycling. This is then shredding. Actually, I believe so. It depends on the part as such. Yeah, if you have like a motor, yeah, starter motor or alternator, then it's also like melting the material. I don't know if they shred it before. I'm not an expert in this, but that means they go into material recycling. For the second, what was the second part with the?
It's regarding the designing of the original part for reuse later, part of the eco-design principles.
Yeah. So from my perspective, as looking on the reverse supply chain, for me would be most important in that the proper marking of the products, so that we can actually identify them also when they have gone through a use phase. Yeah, because that stuff which is running into a car, it gets dirty, oily, hot, salt and water and cold and everything. Yeah, and after having done this for a couple of years, it's quite hard to identify these products after that time. And this is, I think, something crucial if you want to stay on the product level and remanufacture it as a product and not put it into recycling. No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so then just for balancing also our online participants, I've seen here a question, and I only can pick out once for the sake of time, and I guess that's one of the hopefully shortest. There is a question: how do you prove that refurbished products meet its product conformity certificate? So who dares?
Maybe we should invite a colleague from Beko. I'm just joking. No, but in principle, whatever we give on the market has to comply with the regulations which are there. So for us, at least the majority of the refurbished products are not the products, I must say, which are taken back after 10 years of the usage. But in company at the moment, I will say, we are actually thinking, we call these B products. We are actually taking the products which are returned from, let's say, from the internet sales for whatever reason, because they have a right to return, or for example, the products which were, which packaging was damaged in the transport, or such products are more or less, and these are confirmed with what is, with this product conformity certificate. For the rest of the product, we are more keen towards this, that we actually as the product owned the product. So this means that we are not talking about refurbishing anymore, but we are talking about repairing. So this means that we are just extending the life of the product which is ours. So in principle, no one bothers whether it's used or all parts, as long as it provides the function.
Thank you for that. And I would like to hand over transitionally, smoothly into the next panel. But first of all, thank you for that round. If I may ask that, hold on a second, Markus and Aleš, you can stay, exactly. And then we have Federica and Jan Köller. Can you have your presentation ready? Can you shorten it to, let's say, 15 minutes max? That for the sake of time, yeah. Yes. I learned that the lunch will be served here in front of the doors, so we can always take a couple of minutes more, but I think we shouldn't plan that. We shouldn't only have that as a safeguard. And then Özlem, please, and Maxime as well to the panel. Maxime? Ah, here you are. So my mic has gone. I have to introduce you from here. It's Federica Rosasco from RINA, and afterwards Jan Köller from Fraunhofer IPA, and they both will give the introductory slides for the next panel, where we have the policy relevant results to discuss. And yeah, later on we will then have the same setting as you are used to.
Thank you, Konstantin, and good morning to everyone. I try to be brief, even if we are talking about regulation. I hope it is not boring for you. In CSERVEES project, we as environmental and climate change unit of RINA Consulting worked at a position paper containing examples of policy recommendation, mainly legislative recommendation to policy makers. So this is the methodology that we followed to work to write this paper. So first we analyze the EU current policy framework in EE sector through desk research, analysis of information provided by the consortium internal partners, and interlinks with other tasks. Then we analyzed the non-technical barriers, so economic, social, and mainly legislative barriers, through online interviews with demos, but also recyclers of CSERVEES project. And then we involved other also external stakeholders to the discussion in order to understand their feedback, their position in this topic. Within our work, we also investigated the eco-design requirements and the waste criteria and the feasibility of set targets to the recovery, reuse, and recycle of some streams of waste. Here you can find some example of recommendations both to EU institutions in this slide, but also to other actors involved in the whole value chain of EE equipment. For example, in our opinion, the Commission, together with member states as a support, should draft some guidelines in order to increase the understanding and compliance, mandatory or voluntary, with the EE sector regulatory framework, and also join public campaigns to towards targeting the main actors, so from manufacturers to recyclers, administration and government, to also final users, in order for them especially to improve the accurate identification of materials and a good way to dispose them. Then the Commission supported in this way by policymakers should differentiate regulations according to the specificity of the product, but also try to maintain the requirements in terms of circular economy at EU level in order to not let national laws to lead to market fragmentation. The Parliament, the Council, and the view of the Commission should also bring global consensus in a unified market view. So, for example, to examine the laws applicable to EE sector in order to create a EU-wide legislations. Finally, to policymakers, in our opinion, is useful if they can work on integration of life cycle assessment studies as a requirement, for example, in procurement practices or EU project tender, and to really consider the need of all the stakeholders within the whole value chain of the EE production, while updating some regulatory framework, like, for example, the frequent change in limits value contained in the REACH directive or other templates for critical materials can lead the manufacturers to lose let's say time and also cost effort in filling this template that maybe they can red flag some part of supply chain as red, but actually the previous template didn't, so it can be a bit confusing. Or, for example, to well define the competencies and responsibility of different stakeholders within the WE directive, other directive about waste shipment regulation that is currently in a revision stage, that can pose a strong restriction for the export of some WE streams. And other of these recommendations are inserted in our deliverable that is going to be published at the end of the project. Here there are other recommendations actually to public authorities or manufacturers or technology developers that we collected thanks to all the other results of CSERVEES project, as you saw in the previous presentations. So, for example, to public authorities to express a recommendation like via procurement policies to promote the use of products with a higher content of replaced plastic, for example, or to, as did by the demo in CSERVEES project, analyze the impact of their product according to LCA-based method in order to identify a real area where they can improve the circularity of their product. Manufacturers supported by standard bodies, for example, can state their required grade of recycled materials to their component suppliers, so that the idea is that the suppliers can in this way anticipate the need of the manufacturers and so to prevent their demand. In setting the grade with a special methodology of recycled material development can be supported by the research and development team of the manufacturers, but also from two standards bodies. Of course, the cooperation of the whole value chain is important at national, so local level, but also EU level to achieve the targets on recycled content. And it is very useful that technology providers can provide technical recommendation on standardization, so certification pathway of their product, but also, as we saw, instruction manuals that can enable and facilitate the maintenance and repair of their own product. So that's all. I will leave the floor to Jan, and then we will talk about this during the panel discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thanks Federica for the introduction. My name is Jan Koller. I'm a group manager at the Fraunhofer IPA in Bayreuth, Germany. And we collected policy recommendations throughout the course of the research project. And today I want to present you some of the project findings, some recommendations, and on the right you can also see some of the references we used. So let me begin with number 1 of the 7 findings we took out of the consortium. Is the double taxation of used products. For example, in Germany we have the so-called Altteilsteuer, which applies to automotive parts. So if you go to a workshop, want your engine replaced, you pay value-added tax on the new engine. You pay the price. You pay also a value-added tax for your old part that you give back, which can be later on remanufactured. And there would be our recommendation to exempt used products of such sales taxes, which leads to point number 2. It's the lack of financial incentives. We heard it in the opening presentation in the morning, but also during the discussions prior. It's about that the sustainable product service system business models, they have to, you need a lot of investments in the first place. You have the reverse logistics, you have to check the parts, have to clean them and so on. And all these investments are much higher compared to just selling a product. But on the other hand, both of those business models are in the same taxation category. So that would be also one recommendation to lower, for example, here for sustainable business models, the value-added taxes on the labor cost, for example, to remanufacture the parts, so that they are more competitive and also cheaper at the end. Then we have difficulties in harmonizing markets. That's not just only within the EU, but also in transports across different continents. And here we think that also remanufacturing, for example, remanufactured parts, or parts that are intended to be remanufactured later on, should be considered in free trade agreements. We heard this point already in the morning. It's about the cross-border transportation of used products, of course, in the automotive industry, for example. And here we have the problem that the base status applies to those used products. So even if they are intended to be remanufactured, in my opinion, it might be clear from a legislative point of view. But there are some examples we heard also from different remanufacturers in the past that there are problems if you ship those used products into different countries, because you have then the customs authorities saying you just want to export waste into other countries and other continents, and therefore we would recommend to have a new status, like products which are intended to be reused, remanufactured, refurbished, as an example. Point number 5 is about different international remanufacturing terms, processes, quality standards. I think you are aware that there's the British standard about what is remanufacturing, but there are different standards and also different definitions of what is remanufactured, what is a remanufactured product. And this can lead to different problems. For example, on the one hand, cheaper products from other continents, for example, which also state that they are remanufactured, but are, for example, just new products. And also from the customer's perspective, if you buy a remanufactured product which doesn't last as long as a new product, then you won't do that in the future again. This is also then about the point number 6, the insufficient visibility of the remanufacturing industry and the processes. So many customers are not aware that there is an option to buy remanufactured, refurbished products. I think that's also, as talked before, about communication, but could also be something about to be included in the green public procurement, that you buy, for example, remanufactured products, and that the decision makers implement this in the national law. The last point is about the recycling, term of recycling, because at the moment, for example, if we look into the high voltage battery systems for electric cars, you have their recycling target requirements for recycling, but at the moment it's a shared indicator which applies to the recycling but also for remanufacturing. And here the problem is that we have very high valuable products which go directly into recycling but could be used in other forms, for example as a secondary in a secondary application. So those are the RECIP's policy recommendations. Konstantin asked me to hurry up a bit, so I will just skip to the next 3 slides. We were also active in standardization activities. Here the KTH was active in the ISO TC 323 on circular economy and the working group 2, which is about practical approaches to develop and implement a circular economy. And there's a standard upcoming about guidelines on business models and value networks. You see the development process at the bottom of the slide, and in December there will be a final meeting to finalize the comments on this standard. I will skip this. There's different points stated in the standard. If you have any questions on this, you can ask them during lunch, for example. And we also have here some highlights from the CSERVEES project, which are about the 455X series of standards. Emilio provided me here a slide, thanks for that. And it's about the ERPs, the energy-related products, and that there should be some differentiation between different standards, different assessments, for example, on the material efficiency, and to adapt them for a specific scope. And also have other elements included in the future, like interoperability, energy saving, and also the environmental footprint of a product. So now I'm looking forward to the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having taken all efforts to make it in time. And I learned that our food will stay fresh, so we don't have to worry, just the hunger maybe increases. So we clearly will take 10 minutes over the hour, over the full hour, so, but nevertheless. Let me speed up a little bit, and I decided that I ask you a question where everyone then can select which one of the parts you use. So just think about, it's a wishing day, yeah? The good guy comes down and says, you have 2 wishes. One thing is about what barrier would you like to see going away or getting smoothed or getting out of the way of a more increased circular economy. And the other thing, the other wish goes to what aspect or which item from your work you have done you see as the most important one for a scale up and increase of circular economy. So one time the border or barrier, the other time the scalability, yeah, the most important things. And I also have to announce that, and I hope technology this time works well, that Olivia Cassé, I'm not sure how to pronounce, We hope that we can hear her. I learned that she is online and has a Teams chat, so she also can listen then, and hopefully also with one of the questions chime in when it comes to legislative and policy aspects. Here I see you. Welcome.
Hello.
Oh, it runs perfectly. Super. We hear you. Great. So, shall I select one, or do you already know some answers? Then simply speed up and go ahead. As I learned, you are super free of speech.
Hi again. Back to your first question. It was very well put by two presenters that really, I think the financial incentives and not calling an intended reuse product a waste would be the two enablers, in my opinion, for the sake of the circularity sector. And also, it's really the emphasis on customers and increasing their awareness. It's also really important because there's a social aspect that we're missing in terms of the second-hand product usage in the system. Because both in terms of, for instance, in our project Emmaus, they employ socially disadvantaged people in their stores to sell these second-hand products. And as Electrolux was putting in their cooperation with Norsk Skombruch, they say that by selling these second-hand products, they give people, low-income people, the chance to buy the same quality Electrolux product that would otherwise not be able to be bought. So I also agree with our colleagues in that regard that there's a social aspect to it as well, so we should be aware of that as well. And also, what was the thing that mattered most to us in this study is that I think there are a lot of things, but what's really interesting for me is people's, customers' perception of using a refurbished TV is higher compared to using a refurbished washing machine. But in terms of Emmaus feedback, or the dismantler feedback, the TV recycling process is a dangerous one and requires certain infrastructure investment and also technical know-how. Whereas the washing machine refurbishment process is relatively easier compared to that. So there's a demand in the market, but the from the refurbishment side, the technical know-how is not there. So I think there's a gap here that can be addressed and there can be a potential in the market. So that was one of the findings that's really interesting for me. And the other one was that the refurbishment people don't usually recover the components, and we leave it to the recyclers to recover the components. But by the time it becomes waste, it's not really easy to really sort these products and to recover the materials. So I think that system needs to change. So there's a really infrastructure need in the system. So those are my two very important findings from these works. Thank you.
Very positive that I hear that the expectation or the image of refurbished is higher than it was in the past. But there's still a gap, and maybe that is also a policy aspect in the end. Yeah? How to influence a societal awareness. Yeah? Could be. That's what I hear from your words and try to transfer it. But maybe there's another opinion possibly on these two wishes.
Yes, we also have, I agree with everything what was said before, but I will say that I have additional worry. For example, what I see happening now is that we all support this Commission Green Deal. But on the other side, we see a huge danger now because we see some legislation is postponing, but on the other side, we have very nervous member states. So, for example, if you look durability index, we already have it in France. Now it looks like that we will have it in Spain, we will have it in Germany, we will have it in every country with different the durability index, and this is something what the industry doesn't like. So we want to have a common actually approach But this could be imposed because, for example, Apple in this sense was arguing that we should actually put more pressure on the Commission that actually should block the member states of adopting this legislation. But in principle, they argued that this was not a product-related issue, that this was only additional information which they asked. But this means, like, for example, in packaging, for every country we have different labels, different signs, different. So it's a real mess. So this is why, even before I said that we are for the standardization and harmonization, and from this place I urge actually that the Commission put a lot of efforts together with the member states to come with a unified decision, because Europe is small, and you can imagine we are selling to, I don't know, more than 100 countries globally, so its complexity is immense from the point of the company. And all this is actually hindering the circular economy. But on the other side, I must say that we see also the positive aspect of these pressures. For example, one of these is that we get now requests from the retailers, for example, in France, that they say, if you want that we sell your appliances, you need to offer also refurbished appliances on the other side of the store. So, and this is actually helping on the other side, benefiting this, and I'm convinced that if you merge this thing together, so on one side pressure and harmonized approach, but on the other side the movement which actually started now, then we are really into, let's say, we are going toward the circular economy.
Olivia, is that the right moment to bring you in? Or do you want to listen to the others first?
Maybe I can listen to the others first and come with some comments. Thank you.
For sure.
So that means me then, yeah. First, I think also the issue of having a status between product and waste for products intended to be remanufactured would be really something which would help us. Because whenever a product gets waste, of course there is procedures documented how you could end the waste status and stuff like that. But I don't think that a product which is intended to be remanufactured is waste, not legally and not technically. And therefore I think it would make it much easier for everyone to handle that procedure if there is also an official status to that which could be claimed and documented. And if you're talking about wish list or something like this, yeah, you also said, I'm still thinking about the example what you did, Alish, before, that if you put a refurbished part into the rest of it, a new product, let's say, then you have to claim this, and this is an obstacle. So I really wonder if this is not something where marketing could be better to improve that. When I see in the television that, like, there's a claim of, like, I don't know, I have taken 0.5% of recycled PET bottles in my product and now everything is green. So why could we not twist that the other way around, saying, look, you're participating here because there are some refurbished components in there, and if we could make that more transparent, that would maybe also help it and put another aspect to the story.
Thank you. Maxime?
Yes, what wishful thinking is, the first I would take the incentives. I saw the presentation, like the reduced VAT or no VAT. I know there's a wish list and probably nothing will happen in the short term, but perhaps we get another answer after from the Commission, even if it's not them to decide. Because at the end what happens is that some players that want to push the refurbishment business, they have higher costs, and that's not, some were not acceptable, and others, they don't do anything, they don't have those higher costs. So or you get help at the beginning that you have reduced cost for the reverse logistic to make it a little bit cheaper, because not everybody is doing, or you get help at the end when you sell the products that you can sell them to another price than others only selling new devices. Or the other solution is that you have a level playing field. For example, targets, that you have targets in the market through public procurement, for example. But then it's for all players, and then this will also accelerate the refurbishment business, because then it's getting mandatory. And here the wish for public procurement. Today you have a green public procurement guidelines that also exist for our industry, for the imaging equipment industry, but they're only guidelines. And what happens in reality, that in the member states, they look at it, they say it's nice, but we want to do it differently because we have different ideas. And so every country is doing it in a different way. And each initiative is probably good, but it's not at all harmonized. So for example, you have in France, you have now a target, but only for printers and cartridges. In Italy, you have another target, other percentage, and that's only for the cartridges. So it makes it very complex and probably not effective at the EU level. And then perhaps the last point, what we learned, what we put really into, what we will put into practice, is that we saw our refurbished products were probably too good. It looked like a new one, but in fact the expectation from the customer expectations is different. That customers don't expect the product to look brand new. They also accept if perhaps there are some cosmetic defects. So this can help us in the future to bring cost out of the remanufacturing process.
So two things there. So again, the expectation from the society, from people, outside clients. But also I heard that I don't want to say stronger, but more clarified and more stricter guidelines in the GPP, in the Green Public Procurement process might be. I'm having in mind US EP systems that is in practice since a couple of years. We don't need to discuss that, but is that something what could be a way forward in your mind, the EP system from US?
For example, I mean, that's a system that works well and that we apply then on a worldwide scale even. So everybody benefits of it, and it's okay. Yeah, it's clear.
Yes, I really agree with you on those points, to level the playing field. And also if it comes to the automotive demonstrator, I think we have the established players and remanufacturers when it comes to the conventional combustion engine. But also if we look in the transformation towards electric vehicles, there are still many open questions, and the OEMs often don't consider remanufacturing in the first place, so in the design of the product. And that makes it very complicated for the remanufacturers to, for example, disassemble a battery system which is glued together. And I think there should also be strict rules and also an even playing field for all of the stakeholders.
Final one before I go back to Olivia.
Yeah, just to say something about the definition of waste. So the product has to follow the waste criteria in order to be defined as, a product that can be defined as, again, product to be used. So this is very important. And apart from some examples of legislation barriers, we saw that the social part is very important because if there is a demand, and of course it's legal, the legislation will follow. So I think we touched both our recommendation and Jan's recommendation in this discussion.
Thank you. So handing back to Olivia, I'm glad that you are here. I give you a good time that you can have free choice of what you want to select from the points and maybe elaborate a little bit on that, and also with view on having in mind the time. I also want to give the audience a good time that they can have their lunch. So please, feel free.
So, thank you very much, maybe we can go back and forth. I can, so that the panel can also interact with me as well as the audience. I would like to say that thanks to the Circular Economy Action Plan launched in 2020, we have really paved the way to a more circular economy, and the release of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Regulation proposal earlier this year was a true milestone, and it was not granted until the very end, to be frank. So it's very ambitious, and it has many, so thanks to eco-design requirements, many endeavors to improve circularity of products with increased durability, repairability, etc. So it will not produce concrete results before end of 2024-2025. But for stakeholders, there are opportunities to be involved. And for example, we are releasing soon the first draft work program with the first list of priority products, and you have a chance to make comments on that. And I have to say as well that I was very much interested and impressed by the results of these two research projects presented today. Yeah, these are the main points I'd like to share. Maybe more technical aspects in this eco-design for sustainable product regulation. You have definitions of remanufacturing and refurbishment. So this proposal is still in co-legislation. So you have a chance as well to comment on that and to go back to the Commission if you see that there is any flaw you spotted. But the definitions are been discussed a lot ahead of the publication, and actually it distinguishes well what is waste and what is not waste. So bear with me a second. I'd like also to highlight the work of the Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, co-led by the ESC, Economic and Social, European Economic and Social Committee, as well as the Commission. Yeah, and that's also a place of fruitful interactions with various stakeholders. Thank you, and very happy to interact further.
Any final question back from the audience, from the panel? Any final question from the audience? Yes, please. Oh, did I miss someone? No. Ah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Again, I'll keep it short. David Fitzsimons from the European Remanufacturing Council. I thought it was extremely helpful set of recommendations at the end to discuss, but I do think it's a mistake on your recommendation number 7, Jan, in relation to targets, to recommend the separation of targets between recycling, reuse, remanufacturing. Difficult to explain here in the conference, but I will happily send you a note on why technically it's better to blend them for the future and how to do that in an elegant way to leave policymakers in the future with simple options on how to encourage more remanufacturing and less recycling. But I would say formally, I absolutely object to your recommendation number 7.
Any comment on that?
Curious about that now. I'm looking forward to hear about that.
Very good. Very good. So a clear outlook into the future. If there is not more on the audience side or in the panel or from the Commission side, I would, for the sake of time, give a closing final sentence. There's not more. That's the chance. Now or never. Thank you for your attendance here in the room and online as well. Sorry for the time delays, but I gave room for interesting content, and therefore we moved a little bit above the closing time. Thank you for the panelists for that here, and for all the 2 before, and certainly also for all the presentations and the project work as it was presented. I take one final thing with me, much more certainly what I learned and what I heard, but one final for the room here. If I go into a library the next time, I know it's a refurbished product. Thank you for that. Enjoy lunch. I hope you all stay here. And thank you that I could have this moderation. Take care.